A championship in the world of Overwatch is more than just a climb. It's an arduous ascent, a gauntlet fraught with challenge, trial, and tribulation. And tonight, here at the Grand Finals presented by IBM, we will crown our Overwatch League champion for 2020. I am Mitch Leslie. It is my pleasure to be joined here by Matthew Morello, as always, to bring you our final match in our gauntlet here. And there'll be one winner as the smoke clears, Matt.
Yeah, and what a run we've had to get here. It is the San Francisco Shock yet again, and then the Seoul Dynasty, who even coming into this, they were a dark horse, a long shot. A lot of people are kind of talking about this is maybe like a two-horse race with the Shock in the Shanghai Dragons, but Seoul Dynasty has looked so good throughout the Grand Finals presented by IBM that they have a realistic shot here.
Absolutely, and it's been a climb for both of these teams to get to this game. Of course, our final four teams are stacked with talent. The Seoul Dynasty went up against the San Francisco Shock early on, Matthew, and it was close. San Francisco just staved off a reverse sweep. But the Dynasty fought through the lower bracket in a Cinderella story unlike any other, and a victory against familiar rivals and favorites from the APAC region, the Shanghai Dragons, to get them here.
Yeah, no, one Seoul Dynasty, so they lose those first two matches, the maps to the San Francisco Shock. They end up making it a series, forcing a Game 5. From that moment on, they've been really strong. I know they make quick work of the Philadelphia Fusion. The match against the Shanghai Dragons is close, but they pull it out in the end. Now they get themselves a rematch with San Francisco, where San Francisco just looking to repeat yet again. I know they were our champions last year. We all knew they were going to be a very strong team throughout the year, but we also know how difficult it is to repeat. To see them back here in the finals is tremendous.
Yeah, we've seen depth, we've seen resilience, we've seen innovation from a roster that's been challenged with multiple different conditions. We started out this season at homestands, at live events, the crowd pulsing around them. Then we moved, of course, to an online setting, and hero pools came into effect. Week by week, San Francisco had to make changes in order to stay at the top. And after a slower start to the season, they quickly regained their footing as a championship contender.
Yeah, and you can see how much they've done within the Overwatch League thus far. I also think it speaks to their coaching staff, right? Being able to take risks when they feel like it, right? They go out and bring in Toyou in the middle of the year, to try and play him some. They also put Super on Genji for a bit, where a lot of people were just kind of like, what is going on? Rascal comes in the last minute, not having practiced Genji, but the confidence in him to make a difference. It's a coaching staff which knows their players extremely well. They always put them in a great position to succeed, and you see the culture that this team has built. It is a winning one. And
it demonstrates itself in the results. You can see them right there. But they are going up against previous champions as well. Profit and Gesture. What an incredible story. A throwback to 2018 where these two players came alive on a team that people thought had a chance but was not a front runner. They just dominated, and they're doing it here again 2 years later with a completely different roster, Matt.
And look, Profit and Gesture sometimes during the regular season, especially with Seoul Dynasty, London Spitfire in the past, they left you wanting more. Where is this playoff Profit and Gesture in the regular season? I think the fans will take this version of it, though, at the end of the day. They always turn up in playoff time. They have been on fire since that San Francisco Shock match. And Gesture on the Roadhog has made a huge difference, just going around on these flanks, putting pressure on the opponent's DPS. We know what Profit can do. He can play everything at the highest level.
Of course, Gesture in a position now where it's much more than just making space that's on his plate. He needs to get those kills, and so far, so good. All-time ranks. Profit is #1 in hero damage and #1 in eliminations, and a paltry second in final blows. This is the pedigree of a legend of the game. It really is no one like Profit, and the fact that he's been able to show up and get this team to where they are now, it's again been a story of coming alive in the playoffs. I think coming into the playoffs, Matt, the Dynasty were 15 wins, 16 losses, right? They had a very tough bracket to play through in the APAC region, but again, they fire up in a perfect meta, perfectly suited to them.
And what I think's so impressive about Prophet is a lot of the time the opponents are trying to game plan around him, right? Or just kind of, they know he's going to be a big difference maker. How do we stop Prophet? How do we stop Prophet? And he's still able to put up these types of numbers. It's just tremendous. I think if he were able to win today, I know if the Seoul Dynasty can pull this off, he puts himself right at the top of the ladder in terms of Overwatch players all time. Yeah,
it's a very short list, Matt, of individuals that have hoisted 2 Overwatch League championship trophies, but the Dynasty are looking to make it happen, and at the helm are legends of yesteryear. So make some noise, we'll get excited, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our arena, the Seoul Dynasty.
Tiger Nation. Yo, get the hell out of my zone. Champion is not wrong.
And they definitely, I still think, even with their performances, come into this match as the underdog. But you have the championship experience of Prophet and Gesture. You also have Bdosin on this team as well, not in the lineup to start things off today. You look at some of these other players that we don't talk about that often. You know, Marvel, right? Tremendous on like the Sigma. He was really like standout last year. And this year, it's always been like weird because Marvel and Gesture are both main tanks, but they play them a lot together. They've kind of put Marvel in a position where he plays some Diva. And then a player who was on fire in the playoffs comes into the Final Four and really plays well is Fitz. He's not like the big kind of household name that you would kind of compare to or Prophet right now. Fitz is a tremendous Widowmaker player, though. He's going to be a big difference today for Seoul Dynasty.
I mean, he obviously took the role on this roster that maybe Fletter occupied prior and has looked very good in a meta that's really conducive to those hit scan picks he loves so much. But across the aisle on the other side of the arena is a team that is forged from hunger. They're looking to make it 2 championships in a row. It is the San Francisco Shock.
And last year, the San Francisco Shock are so dominant, but I think if they're able to pull this off today, it is actually more impressive than what they did all last season. With all the obstacles in their way, with how the season has gone, how much change there's been, I feel like weathering that storm and winning here today would be even more impressive, more impactful than what they did last year.
And I mean, maybe no surprises to see this roster. It's a deep roster, many top-tier players sitting on the bench, but it will be Arns and Striker to come in at DPS here for this first map. No surprise, obviously, Matt, it is the control maps. And Super, again, features in the starting lineup alongside Smurf.
Yeah, they did this against the Seoul Dynasty when they played the other day. I think what I'm looking at is how Arns comes out and looks, because Fitz was really starting to get the better of him in the series a few days ago in the second half. If you kind of get that performance from Fitz again, the Shock could be in trouble early, but we know what Arns is capable of. Rookie player comes in, dominates on the hit scan heroes, the long range ones like the Ashe, the Widowmaker. He's got to come up big here early on.
The head-to-head, Arns versus Fitz, Striker versus Prophet. You can't ask for much more. 2 incredible Wrecking Ball players across these 2 rosters in Smurf and Marvel, and you have the recipe for an absolute barn burner of a match, ladies and gentlemen. And here's that T-Mobile Skybox connecting fans across the world from coast to coast. Everyone joining us in our excitement for what promises to be one of the best matches of Overwatch we have seen. There's a legacy amount of grand finals in the Overwatch League being a little bit one-sided, but this year, no one expects a result like that.
No, we've had some one-sided matches, getting up to this point, right, with some of the Philadelphia Fusion ones, but this one you expect to be one that could go the distance. It is that type of match. It is a underdog team who is hitting their peak right now versus your defending champions. The first map in the set will be Oasis. As we jump into game, I expect both teams to flex the Roadhog early and often. That's why you see Super in the game right now. Super probably will play the Roadhog here for the San Francisco Shock. This gives them the opportunity to play stuff like the Hog with the Wrecking Ball. They can play Hog with Sigma as well for San Francisco.
2 players, Gesture and Super. No shortage of bravado between the 2 of them, and that's why Roadhog is a perfect pick. It's a tank that wants to function like a damage dealer, making individual plays, flanking, and trying to find those all-important picks. The San Francisco Shock, Matt, have staved off 3 potential reverse sweeps over the course of the playoffs, and they hope to not have to get to that point. But the Dynasty are hungry. They want to set this up now in their favor. And we're into Oasis, ladies and gentlemen. It'll actually be Marvel on the Sigma here, as Super Smurf, it's going to be Hog and Ball.
I think you have the Sigma in play to help a little bit with the Tracer that's going to come out from Striker. So we saw how Striker was able to deal with Fleta, our Overwatch League MVP, in the Tracer head-to-head. This though, profit on the Hanzo. He can definitely take out Striker if he gets a little bit too close. That'll be Fitz taking out Smurf early on as Smurf was going in, trying to disrupt. It looks like he actually got a hit with a sleep dart there, and they're able to deal with him.
Creative on that Ana pick. It's a very Asia-styled pick in that flex support role, and he has been terrorizing his opponents so far. And even with how durable Wrecking Ball is, a sleep dart makes him too vulnerable, and Seoul start with control of the point. Jester tries to go for a hook on Smurf, but takes a lot of damage to pay for his hubris. And the Shock pushing onto the point here, so much so that the Dynasty have to play around Marvel's shield.
Yeah, they just need to back up Seoul Dynasty. They need to heal up the tanks. They were both a little bit low. Now they can get back on and contest. As you do have a nano boost in play, they're going to throw it on a Gesture, and look at this. Just the ability that he can do here, Mitch.
Oh my.
He's going to get a hook here on a super, but just the threat of him with the nano boost, and they know that his hook is active, they have to get away from the point. They're still not able to get super out in time.
Striker brought back into the fight there as Prophet is knocked into the drink, but Gesture once more is looking for a way to forge his own fortune. Flanks, looks for a hook, but he finds a whole hog on towards Smurf there. Another fight that begins with San Francisco down a player. Fitz gets the drop on towards Arndt here. Oh, but he comes up second best as Striker accosts him from behind. Marvel's hit with a Discord Orb on the point, and the Transcendence there keeps the Shock topped up going into this fight. Creative false foul of a headshot from Violet. Striker has a pulse bomb that he doesn't need to use.
And San Francisco flips the point back. They do end up giving up 55%, but they do it with really, it's a Bob early on from Ants, and then the Transcendence to keep the tanks alive on the point when Seoul Dynasty ends up using their Bob. So limited investment there from the San Francisco Shock, and they're able to flip the point back. So Valkyrie coming into this next fight, you'll have a Pulse Bomb. Striker is so good at landing these into the back line. You win another fight for cheap here for San Francisco. You're going to get above the percentage that Seoul Dynasty has. 3 final blows already for Striker, living up to the hype provided for him, but Violet goes down early. It's a damage boost from Fitz that gets him across the line. Has to be a resurrect from Moth. He's able to do it safely. Striker definitely dodges the sleep dart coming at him from Creative and still has that pulse bomb ready to go, but Violet again falls. There's the trade. Moth goes for the blaster and he gets the better of Prophet. A Gesture falls. Super finds a headshot with a scrap gun, and there's that damage boost to boot. All the resources required given the Super to get that big kill. And San Francisco, Matt, they do what you asked for them. They get a second clean fight win. Yeah, now they're going to pass Seoul Dynasty in terms of percentage. Let's see what Seoul is going to have to work with coming into the next fight. Valkyrie, Nano Boost, and the Bob from Fitz. So maybe you can use the Bob in test point. Put some point pressure on, get the Nano Boost on the Gesture yet again, and just let him take space, allow you to get some of this high ground control.
Tentatively, Prophet tries to take position here on top of the T. He's looking for the Zenyatta, the one Violet has to know he's being hunted right now. That's a Storm Arrow headshot, and Violet's forced out of line of sight. Bob takes down Smurf, and Jester's on the point to deal with Super. This will be Seoul rapidly back in the driver's seat.
And if you cannot give up the high ground that easy if you're San Francisco. They allow Prophet to get into a position, shoot Violet from the side. They use the Bob, just like I expected, to get onto the point, buy some space. And now how does San Francisco go about trying to get some of this high ground back? Is you see Hanzo obviously able to wall climb, right? Can take some of this just stuff of his own ability. Like Prophet gets hit with a dynamite there, and they're going to use his shield to get in front of him, but Anza's able to take out Dangerous with the help of a damage boost.
Dangerous res from Tobi there. Striker's able to take him down as he attempts to bring Fitz back into the fight. And this may well be a quick flip back in favor of the Shock, but Gesture and Prophet have other ideas. Dragon Strike now, I don't think at all Smurf was ready for that one. He's forced to back around that central pillar. Smurf runs into Prophet, knocks him away, gets a health pack, and then runs him down. Overtime sees San Francisco with a player advantage. Striker wants to try and force Fitz away, but he's booped off course by Tobi. Eventually, the latter is taken down, and San Francisco prevent an early round end.
And you mentioned the Striker pick on a Tobi. It's something we saw Seoul Dynasty do, and specifically Tobi in the Philadelphia Fusion match. He was able to go for these risky reses and get them off time and time again. You're not going to be able to do that against the San Francisco Shock. The Shock here, they're loaded up, Mitch. They're going to have a Bob, double support ults, minefield. They're in a perfect position to take this first point.
Gravitic Flux is available for Marvel. That could throw a spanner in the works, and he's going to let it go early. Smurf drops in, minefield put in front of Gesture, but he's able to dodge out on most of it. Marvel a little bit low, and Bob comes charging straight at him, bustling as he goes about his business. Gesture falling to Smurf on the point now, and Arns is looking for a shot on Fitz, who's cannily keeping his head down, but the dynamite will give him a bit of a frizz problem. He'll be knocked off the edge now as Smurf tries to get to the high ground. He cannot interrupt the resurrect on Marvel, though. Prophet is down. Arns playing from a safe angle now, and here's the roll towards Marvel once more. The pulse bomb safe, but Creative finds its mark, and now we're at 99-99, and the Dynasty are low on players. San Francisco strike back from behind in round one, and Oasis is already off to the races.
And they're going to need Seoul Dynasty. They're going to need to protect these supports a little bit better going up against Striker. You know, what Gesture's been really good at throughout the Grand Finals presented by IBM is going on these flanks to the Roadhog, putting the pressure on the opposing team's DPS. It's very difficult, though, for the Seoul Dynasty to protect their own.
By the way, any crunches out there? Pringles Wavy and Cheez It Grooves are giving you behind-the-scenes photos for today's match. Just tweet at Overwatch League with the hashtag CrunchTimeCam SEO for Seoul or hashtag CrunchTimeCam SFS for San Francisco to receive a photo of your team in real time. We connected like never before, ladies and gentlemen. 2020, and we're into the second round. It's Oasis City Center as San Francisco lead 1-0.
In the shot come out here with Batiste, potentially thinking Seoul would try and go maybe over towards the Pharah pick. They've done that before. Seoul Dynasty go with the Pharah, and against that, the San Francisco Shock have answered, using Violet on the Batiste. They don't come out, though. They play the Hanzo yet again here against the Tracer pick.
Perhaps Violet anticipating, something a little bit different from Prophet. The Batiste has definitely been something that only he has really gone for. Violet can play as an off DPS, especially once he gets an amplification matrix online, and that's a big chunk of damage on towards Marvel. Really putting pressure on the healing resources of Seoul as Smurf is able to deal with bits and then slink away with the shielding of that adaptive barrier.
But just look how much pressure they're putting on the supports here. Smurf and Striker just going to the high ground and just getting these picks. And there's no protection there. Tobi's going to have to fly in here just to kind of contest Guardian Angels with his teammate, but no chance for a res. Really clean fight here for the San Francisco Shock.
So what Super was able to do late in that fight, Matt, he is 8 final blows to 2 deaths, and we talked about Gesture being a prolific finder of kills. He's only found 3 so far. Super is outstripping him in a big way, but that is just, that's preposterous. Prophet finds a headshot from around the corner and staves quite comfortably Smurf away from him.
He's always there when they need an answer, Prophet. He's able to pick up 2, even when the Ant Matrix is dropped. Shot into Ans. Fitz will finish it off as Seoul move in, try and take the point back. It is not a given they're going to flip this, though. This point is really easy to contest.
Yeah, San Francisco want to stall it out as long as possibly. Have a Valkyrie in play here for Moth, but he's thinking about pulling the blaster. I saw him eyeing Fitz off like a bit of a snack. He thinks better of it, though, and now that a body grenade is thrown at the San Francisco Shock, Super cannot stay alive, and Smurf gets hit with an accretion. Super will be resurrected, and that is a lot of health brought back onto the battlefield. The same is done for Gesture, though, and the numbers still favor the Seoul Dynasty, but for how long? Arns finds a big headshot on Marvel, and Gesture, despite having plenty of support here from the Nano Boost, loses the main healer in Creative, and this whole hog would be suicidal to use.
Ons with 2, Striker with another, Striker into the back line, takes out Tobi. Like I mentioned, it was not a given that Seoul Dynasty, off of those 2 picks from Prophet, were going to be able to take the point. San Francisco Shock gets back in. They hold on. 80% and counting here for the Shock. You'll have a minefield. This will definitely make it much harder to take the point as well. This is looking really good for San Francisco. This is about as good of a start they could have had.
Devastating for Seoul Dynasty to have lost that fight despite starting so far ahead. Arns incredibly wary of threats from all directions here, and Smurf runs into a target he'd much rather leave in his dust. Tries to get away, but he can't. Gesture found him with the hook, and that's the Dynasty beginning this fight with a player advantage. Gesture has that whole hog he saved from earlier now. It's fermented, matured to perfection. He almost gets run down awfully fast. Striker gets an uncanny amount of shots on towards his head. He's forced away. Here's the Gravitic Flux from Marvel now as he's looking for support, I dare say, but Prophet, he gets gunned down. Striker finds him in the Discord orb from Violet, really helps get the work done. And that's a pulse bomb thrown in by Striker once more. Now Jesse goes for the whole hog, but they've lost Marvel. It has to be a Desperado Resurrect here from Tobi, but he's taken down just after. Creative may be back in the fight, but it's not going to be enough. And the San Francisco turn up in a sensational way in map number 1. Once more, taking Oasis away from the Dynasty.
And you see kind of what happens when Gesture's not able to go put pressure onto the backline. Striker with Smurf in combination, the Tracer and the Wrecking Ball, they were able to just cause havoc for Tobi and Creative all map long. And then Gesture not really able to put any pressure on Ons or Violet. And it's easy pick'ems for the Shock. Their long-range hit scan, able to just dominate, and then Striker able to finish off kills in the backline.
And that's absolutely the start that the San Francisco Shock were looking for. Maybe not such a surprise for Seoul, as they've been here before and they're ready to fight back regardless. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen. We've got more action coming here from the Grand Finals presented by IBM. Map 2 is right around the corner.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch.
IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
And by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory.
Back in the spawn room, it's Golden Boy with another amazing chance for all of you from around the world to get your Overwatch on. From your grand finals prediction to a shout out to your favorite player or team to posting a pic, or if you just want to say hi to little old me, I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and use hashtag CheckMeOWL and hashtag OWL2020 and post a message on our grand finals social wall. It's your voice, it's your time. Celebrate with us and share your Overwatch League pride. So much more from the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals coming up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile.
IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right, fellow denizens of the interwebs. T-Mobile wants you to choose the Grand Finals MVP. Voting is open now at overwatchleague.com/MVP or on Twitter using the hashtag OWLMVP and add the player's name or battle tag right after it. Matt, that's already a couple candidates for that after that first map. I mean, we saw some real stunning play from San Francisco to hold on to City Center and really never let it go.
I thought you were going to say I'm a candidate because of my awesome outfit today.
I love that you.
I thought that's where you were going to go. I thought you were going to go into a monologue about how awesome my outfit was.
My man,
yeah,
Matt
we
Morello.
have some good players here as well. We have some candidates, I think. No, early on, I think for me, Striker had a phenomenal map. Same with Smurf, right? But I think obviously extremely early in this series. We expect this series to be long. I think that the first map there, San Francisco just looked really well coordinated. I think the Seoul Dynasty needs to wake up a little bit going into the second map.
Absolutely. The second map of this series is going to be a hybrid map, and it will be a different map to the one that Seoul selected against San Francisco not, a couple days ago, not one day ago, of course. Hollywood was the map that we saw for map number 2, and San Francisco looked really dominant there. It's going to be a little bit of a mix-up for the Dynasty coming into this one, and I mean, they're choosing a map that is, I mean, I think you ask any player what their favorite map is or their most played, they'd probably say King's Row.
Yeah, and it's one that the San Francisco Shock have always been extremely strong on. I think, though, this meta with Roadhog and played with another tank, whether it be like a Sigma Wrecking Ball, it's just way different than anything else we've seen. We do have a sub for San Francisco. Choihyobin will come in here for Smurf. So Super will stay in the game. Super will most likely play the Roadhog the entire time. Choihyobin comes in. You'll probably see a lot of Sigma play. Sigma really good here on King's Row, controlling the high ground.
It only makes sense. Of course, a previous Grand Finals MVP will step back in and take his place in this roster. And here are some of our fastest map times presented by Xfinity. And you'll notice the San Francisco Shock feature in number 1 and 2. But this is a team that has been on both ends of that rather short stick. They obviously dominated the Defiant with a time bank of 442, but the Justice managed to turn it around on them not so long ago. A composition that the Justice featured heavily with Zarya and Roadhog. Not quite what we're seeing from Seoul, but there are hints. There is inspiration from that composition here.
Now that was the Justice that looked like they could be here played in this match. It's not your regular season Washington Justice, but still, it's still they're getting it ran up here against the Shock. It'll be the Shock on offense first, so we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what Seoul Dynasty is going to do. I assume you'll have the Hog with Sigma. I think it just kind of depends. Like, do they want? They'll probably run Widow. Yeah, Widow with the Hanzo. You almost need Widow here on defense to just kind of control the sightlines of the point. You really, it would be shocking if you're Seoul Dynasty on the defensive end not to see Ons come out on the Widowmaker, because this is one where Striker will most certainly play something other than Tracer, right? Tracer not exactly ideal here on the first point, a lot of like verticality. The Hanzo can definitely offer a little bit more.
And that's a flex that we've seen before from Striker. We've also, I mean, you see him hovering the far now, and it actually may not be so ridiculous to see it defensively if teams want to get a little bit spicy. Prophet in particular has loved experimenting with the Pharah in a couple of areas that maybe his opponents won't. But Seoul will have a double sniper defense. San Francisco will likely set a teleporter out in the front here, but if we see him stick to Ans, what does this say, man?
He's gonna get the TP out. They're gonna try and get this high ground. Now you'll see him go back and switch off of this. So this gets San Francisco into a pretty advantageous position. They know though that Ons is back in the spawn. They're just trying to get this high ground. Bully fits out of position.
Marvel's been also shifted from his initial spot, and the San Francisco Shock have been able to pull off a little bit of a Bdosin. Oh, and they've caught Marvel on the low ground. This is a disaster for Seoul. Arguably the most durable, the centerpiece of their team. The Sigma's been taken out, and Gesture followed right after. They've got supports and DPS and not much more, Matt.
And this is such a good strategy for the San Francisco Shock. You get control of the high ground as fast as possible. Then Ons comes back on the Widow. It puts Fitz in a horrible position. He doesn't have control of the sightline of the point anymore because he's been pushed so far back. And that the tanks can't really go and contest. You have the Hanzo damage coming out from Striker. Really great strategy from San Francisco early on.
Well, what's brilliant about it is that Seoul, they're not dumb. They just couldn't see where the teleporter was. That Arns had actually placed down. Jester checked the choke and saw nothing. The Dynasty couldn't help but be caught by surprise by such a strange tactic, and it goes from bad to worse. Gesture gets hooked in and a Discord Orb is liberally applied to his forehead. Violet is traded out, but they get rid of Prophet now in San Francisco. They are just riding this chaos as much as they can. A kill there on Marvel is big, but a resurrect on Prophet may shift the momentum back.
Yeah, but you're going to get a resurrection that happens on the Choihyobin, and you're down
both
tanks for Seoul Dynasty. So you just get so much more value out of this res. Tobi about halfway through the res, he has a tank die directly in front of him. He doesn't end up obviously breaking it up and getting the tank. It's got her as Prophet at that point. He's fully committed as Moth bring back Choi, which is just a large amount of value in terms of HP pool they provide.
I mean, we're talking a considerable amount of shield plus that health. So as far as the effective health points you brought back into the game, it's higher value than a Hanzo Resurrect. Prophet though, little flank, fight strike, it's going to be an instant resurrect here. Gravitic Flux to try and bait out those that were rezzing, but Violet has a Transcendence ready to fire off. And the Shock, a brief rest, and now they're back on the road once more. Accretion whirs overhead for Choihyobin, but he gets rid of Marvel, who went down below half health while he was suspended in midair. Super low, it's an electric-looking gesture in his face, but the Dynasty couldn't touch the cards! This is not how Seoul want this map to be going. The Shock have 5 minutes, 20 seconds on the clock. That is preposterous.
And to be honest, when the Gravitic Flux comes through from Choi, they also end up using a Dragon Strike, but Striker ends up using it so early that it doesn't really connect and do a ton of damage. That could have been just way cleaner for San Francisco. Fitz, the headshot there on the Striker will take him out. They're trying to use a Dragon. They want this kill to last, but be a Valkyrie from Moth trying to keep everybody up.
Gesture trying to wrap around the side here and slow the Shock down with an instant pick, and again Moth. Oh, the audacity of him. Answer's able to find the headshot on Prophet, almost like Moth baited Prophet out into that challenge. Now Striker steps up after Prophet is brought back into the fight. And that high ground control remains with the Shock for now.
Both teams have infra sight popped right now, so lots of vision. They know exactly where they're at. Is Prophet just trying to get a pick here. Sonic Arrow to make sure he doesn't get pushed. It'll be Ons taking out Fitz here.
No way. Oh, okay. Super eventually gets taken down. He was slept and then hit with a Biotic Grenade, and the Dragon Strike doesn't create enough space for the Shock to get him out, so they resurrect him instead. The high ground duel is still going. Prophet's hit with a Wayward Arrow as he's forced to drop down now, and from that right-hand side you can see Choihyobin looking for an accretion. Gravitic Flux, but Creative's down. That's the lion's share of healing available to the Seoul Dynasty. He has to be brought back into the fight, and he is, but the Dynasty is still playing with 5.
Ons with 2. Striker up on the high ground. Big hook there from Gesture. That Seoul Dynasty seems to have control of the cart. They'll have a nano boost here. Whole Hog and Valkyrie as Fitz comes alive and takes out Ons. You do have this Transcendence, Mitch, with no Gravitic Flux on the other side. You can probably use it a little bit more aggressively.
Choihyobin's also close to a Gravitic Flux of his own. Super's put to sleep. Dragon Strike attempted to take his life, but the Transcendence was there from Violet once more, right on time. He has the goods, and now the entirety of the Shock is going to accost Gesture in that left-hand corner. Somehow Tobi has to try and keep the cart stalled and keep Marvel alive at the same time, multitasking at his finest, but Prophet, the lone sniper, returns. He goes for a wide flank and finds 3, putting them in the ground, and San Francisco run out of gas once more. But it's Prophet really coming up cash money.
But think about how hard they've worked for this. And there's still 3 minutes on the clock for San Francisco. Like, this hold has to be just incredible from here on out for Seoul Dynasty. And it feels like Seoul Dynasty on this point, Mitch, they've held for an eternity already. It feels like we spent most of the time here going to point C. And there's still a ton of time on the clock.
But you see that as soon as the Shock give an opening, a player like Prophet exploits it to its absolute fullest. That was honestly inconceivable the way he was able to save his team in that moment. And now Fitz buoyed forward by confidence after that fight win, but Arts finds the headshot. That's an instant resurrect. The Dragon Strike was still loosed, and Choihyobin is looking worse for wear. Violet actually goes down to the Dragon Strike himself, only to be resurrected into, yes, a lot more oncoming fire. Striker's able to find Profit, but it's the supports of the Shock that are beleaguered. And the rest of San Francisco need to sidebar again and regroup.
So you'll have a Dragon for San Francisco. You'll also have the Transcendence. So you'll have Transcendence for Gravitic Flux. But Seoul Dynasty starting to rally off a few holds here. I tell you what, although for as bad as they've looked for point A and point B, if Seoul gets a hold here, that is a huge swing in momentum.
This is how you win a map that starts so poorly, Matt. Really rallying towards the final moments. Answers brought back into the fight now, and the Dynasty are down to 4 players. Tobi has popped the Valkyrie and will be looking for a resurrect, but there's no bodies to safely bring back into the fight, and they keep piling up, one after another. Arn's getting rid of Profit, and you can see the damage boosted Fitz playing from the high ground, but he can't really contest in his current state, and Striker challenges him anyway. Gesture's hooked instantly. The Discord Orb helps a lot. Here it is. The whole hog keeps him off, and Gesture is held aloft, tantalizingly close to the card, but he can't contest, and San Francisco finish the attacking round.
And I think if you're Seoul Dynasty, you can't look at it as like you gave up the entire map with a minute and 17. You have to look at it in the kind of the context of where you were at that time. 5 minutes plus for San Francisco to get from point B to point C. And you're able to hold for 4 minutes there. A really good hold for Seoul Dynasty there at the end. That's got to give them confidence going into this offense. All they have to do, Mitch, if you're a Seoul Dynasty, if you're some of the players over there, whatnot, talking during this time, the setup, it's, hey, if we finish the map and we kind of adjust at the beginning on our point A defense, like we can win this map. You know, they were almost in a position where they were going to give up a record board time there, and they end up holding on pretty nicely there at the end. So if they can get off to a good start here, you can see Seoul Dynasty kind of running the map all the way down, sending us into OT.
Here's those final moments, and this is tough for Gesture. This is what the Shock have to deal with: a Wrecking Ball, Hook, Discord Orb, Nano Boost used for healing and damage reduction, but then the Gravitic Flux and Gesture too far to contest.
I almost thought they weren't going to get the Nano Boost off. When I was watching him come out of the spawn, and he almost gets kind of trapped between both tanks for a second. I didn't think he was going to get the Nano Boost onto him, but he's able to. Still doesn't really make that much of a difference. Is Ants shot onto the Sentry turret as it comes out of the spawn. See how Ants plays this though. Like how I mentioned, they were able to force Fitz off of the high ground, and he wasn't able to just kind of dominate the point, just control from these types of angles. See, Seoul Dynasty, look, they go underneath, so they're not going to try and take this angle away by forcing at the high ground. It looks like at least early on, they're going to go and try and underneath and deny any line of sight.
San Francisco give a lot of space, and Arts has no idea who's behind him, but Profit, he missed the shot, and now the rest of the Shock have come to the rescue of Arts. Tobi goes down as Arts somehow bangs off a damage-boosted body shot, and Violet's there to deal with Profit and Matt. The Dynasty, sometimes the best laid plans go to waste, and that one fell apart.
Oh, and On seemed like he had no clue Profit was there. The Profit able to nail some of those shots, that is a completely different first fight. It's Gesture, doing Gesture things. You see him all the way his outline on the map, just going on these long flanks. Looks like he's going to take that staircase and go up tops, try and go after Moth and On, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
They've rotated Striker up to that high ground as well, though, so Gesture will have his hands full with more than just the Widowmaker. Hanzo definitely a little bit more lethal to him as the Storm Arrows let him rack off one after another.
He's controlled the high ground now, though. That's huge.
And that forces the Shock back into this choke, man. Gesture has the run of the whole barn up there, but Violet gets rid of him. The Discord Orb blows him up, Matt.
It's just Violet is a flex support, whether it's on the Zen or the Baptiste. Just the extra damage he's able to put down is huge. You have an Ana there, you're not able to burst down a Roadhog, right? But when you're playing the Zen, it's much different.
He has more damage than Super right now, does Violet. I mean, by a decent amount. He is functioning. We talked about Roadhog, Matt, functioning as another damage dealer. I mean, Violet is doing just that. Doesn't matter if it's Baptiste, Zen, Ana. He's stepping up. And that's in contrast to, obviously, Creative who's on Ana. He's just not built the character to do that kind of damage. Much more supportive, much more healing-oriented.
We see Violet do this consistently, though. put out just damage that when you look at the numbers, like almost doesn't make any sense from the Baptiste and the Zen position. So Fitz will use the Infrasight here.
That's the shot.
That's a risky challenge when you know he has the walls.
And still, the San Francisco Shock strike back. It looked like a Gravitic Flux from Choihyobin to begin the fight. Striker does go down, but Answer's brought back. So the Shock a little bit limping here, lacking one player. Still in a strong position now as the Dragon Strike will force Choihyobin and Moth to part briefly. And you can see at the top of screen, Striker scrabbling to get back to contest this point.
You'll have a whole hog here, though, for San Francisco. Knock players back. Is Seoul under a minute here on point A.
Another duel brewing between Ants and Fitz here, but Choihyobin's the one to fall first. The Gravitic Flux strikes true from Marvel, and Violet's hit with a Biotic Grenade. Super now in trouble. Drawn in for a big bear hug. It actually comes out on top. There's no way San Francisco can be turning that around. Ants versus Marvel, but Striker has it off angle here. He can't interfere with the capture right now. He'd need to get rid of Fitz and then the Sigma on top, and that's a lot to ask for. But Ants staves him off in the background. You're kidding me?
And Choi comes back on the Wrecking Ball just to pile drive and knock players up.
No one can hide from
It'll be the walls here from Fitz, just trying to get an angle, deny some of these players coming out of spawn, but the damage may already been done. San Francisco's going to get another fight, and Violet takes Profit out.
That's not the way you want to start this fight at all. The Resurrect would have to happen. Choihyobin goes down to the whole hog of Gesture, and Super has to lay low with that Biotic Grenade on him, but Fitz has fallen. Again, they keep going down. The Dynasty need to find a way to surge forward onto the point, but Answer's brought back into the fight too. Now it's Gesture and Marvel huddling close for comfort to try and capture this point, and they get Super. What a critical hook. Gesture with the Nano Boost now, and he can stave up most of the Dragon Strike damage. He's just looking to stand on the point right now and try and get this one under Soul's control. Profit also comes in, and the reinforcements for the Dynasty outnumbered the Shock. They have the numbers, and now they have the payload.
That is so close, though. I mean, it's just a combination of players for the San Francisco Shock. Ants with the snipes. Choi coming back on the Wrecking Ball. Violet on the Zen, able to pick off some players. He also had Violet at one point, just kind of go on a flying Papa Transcendence to stay alive. Unbelievable defense there early on from San Francisco. They put themselves in a great position here on King's Row.
That was almost an inconceivable scene. The Dynasty show that they're made of more than just skill and some true grit to boot. And the San Francisco, the audacity of this move. Looks like they set off a poison mine, so it's likely Fitz is aware that there was some sort of flank in the works.
And no ults here for San Francisco, just the Valkyrie.
Super slept right now. Gesture on a big old flank here. Will they be ready for the Roadhog? It's a double Biotic Grenade hit from Creative. Another big one, and Super can't take a breather. Well, it can, but it doesn't really work. He just gets the health back. And Moth is going to fall here. This is what the Dynasty are looking for. Now a chance to build some momentum, and Profit doubles down. This is what they were looking for.
Yeah, and Moth gets hit with that Biotic Grenade because he goes up a little bit forward to try and heal Super, so he doesn't even bother popping Valkyrie. No reason to waste the Valkyrie there. They use a lot of ultimates at the end of that fight, thinking they can take point A and hold that on defense and get a full hold. It does not work out in their favor. They'll give up point B here. It does not look like they're going to be able to contest. Marvel gets out in front, puts down some damage, denies any chance of that for San Francisco. Now if you're the Shock, though, you gotta push forward, Mitch. You gotta get a little bit closer here, play an upfront defense.
A nightmare start to the round for the Dynasty, but now they're back in a position where they can really threaten San Francisco's time bank. Super sheepishly there, just ducks out towards the right as the Widow shots whiz overhead, and he's going to try and wrap around briefly. Dragon Strike there, a lot of Solar playing inside that right-hand side room, and they catch Gesture out. Another sleep down. There's no capitalization. And Dynasty will be finally sent back to spawn. They built some good momentum. They themselves will now have to regroup.
Still, they're so far behind, or going to be so far behind in the time bank. I know the next upcoming fight you'll have the Gravitic Flux, no support ultimate for Seoul Dynasty to be able to live through that with the extra damage. You also have Moth with the Valkyrie, potentially adding like some damage boost and also healing on through that to keep everybody up. You win a fight like that for San Francisco, we're looking at the Seoul Dynasty with a cart in this type of position with like 40 seconds on the clock to win the map.
So much to play for here for the Dynasty. Going into halftime 0-2 down in a first of 4. It would be a disaster. They lose Gesture early on, but that's the trade. Profit's able to find Super, both Roadhogs taking a lot of damage. Moth goes down. He was punished for going for the resurrect here, and there's a window, a brief one, but Fitz opens it a little bit wider. A chance for the Dynasty to surge forward, but no one's on the cart really pushing it right now. Marvel sets himself forward. Fitz has to do the dirty work here.
And nobody wants to go around the corner with the risk of Once or even Violet putting down some damage. So they have to wait just a second. So he's trying to get everybody back. They can't even put the cart progress on right now. They know Gesture's coming on this flank too, does the Shock. They have to use an nano boost on him. He gets it created out of his out of taking the breather.
That keeps Gesture alive though, and he has an oh my god. He has a whole hog here, and Arndt almost found himself on the wrong side of that scrap gun. Here comes a Gravitic Flux, and Arndt is not able to get out of it here. He will be healed up by Moth, and Violet has a Transcendence on the ground. 15 seconds left of the round, and the Dragon Strike, it gets eaten by Marvel's Kinetic Grasp. That's a huge advantage for the Dynasty, but can they press it further? Prophet goes down, Striker and Moth at the top of your screen, folding back into their spawn, and Super interrupts the increasing from Marvel. He goes down, the San Francisco Shock with the players now, and Tobi can do nothing but try and push the card on its own. That, sadly, is just not going to cut it. A San Francisco Shock have the Dynasty reeling 2 maps to 0. And that is not how the Dynasty, the upstarts, the challengers wanted to begin this series.
Well, we did see this happen in the series that they played a little bit earlier on. But here in our finals, you do not expect the Shock to kind of let off the gas here. They know exactly the type of team that Seoul Dynasty is. They have the ability to come back. And Seoul actually, they probably would have had a chance there, to compete in the map and send it to OT if their point A offense was a little bit better. It took them so long to even get any progress on it. And even when they were capping it towards the end, it was just such a stall. It was so difficult to make happen. If they had a better point A, maybe this map would have been different, but they find themselves in a big hole now.
I mean, in our first match of the Grand Finals presented by IBM, Matt, we saw Seoul have to try and reverse sweep the San Francisco Shock. It didn't work then, and they don't want to have to do it once more, but that may be what's being asked of them. We'll find out many questions, including that one, to be answered as we head into the break. We'll hear from our experts to break down the action we've seen in maps 1 and 2 so far. Don't go anywhere. Halftime's coming up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spawn Room. I'm Golden Boy, and it's time to play Name That Player. We provide fun facts about an Overwatch star. You provide the player. Here are your 3 clues. Has the most time played on Winston in Overwatch League history. Holds 4 of the top 10 all-time Final Blow map records as Winston, and is a Grand Finals champion. The answer? Gesture. He also happened to slap Brandon a Widowmaker 1v1 7-2. Little detail. Congrats to everybody that got it right. So much more to come from the Spawn Room, and of course the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals. We'll see you soon.
Hello and welcome to our game break presented by Pringles, Wavy, Zoe here, joined by Costa as well as Reinforce. We're about to break down the action in our grand finals between the San Francisco Shock and the Seoul Dynasty. But first things first, we would like to apologize to everyone who's currently being affected by having login issues to our English website. These issues are being worked on and hopefully resolved soon, so everyone can enjoy the grand finals viewership rewards, which you will get if you manage to log in. So yeah, as I said, they are working on it and they will provide information anytime soon. So now let's get to the meat of it. Let's talk about this game. The San Francisco Shock are currently leading the charge 2-0 against the Seoul Dynasty. However, Kings Row has been a close one. But let's go all the way back to our first map on Control. Costa, what are the compositional changes, or adaptations rather, you've seen from both of those teams?
Yeah, we go into Oasis, and we actually saw these two teams face off in Oasis earlier in this weekend, and we actually saw some changes in how they came out with it. We actually saw Profit start on that Hanzo. They didn't want to mirror Striker on that Tracer, and they tried, to sort of play more defensively and force the Shock to try and get in their face, which worked a little bit, but they weren't able to edge out the first one on Gardens. But then we went to City Center, and we saw another adaptation. In the past, we've seen Profit playing that Pharah, but he's stuck on that Hanzo. I think this is going to be a theme throughout the entirety of the series. I think Seoul Dynasty is going to start leaning more into their double sniper and moving away from their Pharah and their Tracer, because I don't think they believe that they can match up against the San Francisco Shock with those compositions.
Yeah, the reluctance to play Tracer from the Seoul Dynasty really just sets the tone for the rest of this series. We've seen Profit in the past, very comfortable on Tracer. We know him as a great Tracer player. But going up against Striker, who is undoubtedly the best Tracer in the world, Seoul Dynasty not comfortable going head-to-head in that matchup. And if you take a look at Striker's Tracer stats on Oasis, you can see for yourselves 12 final blows per 10 minutes and 27.5 eliminations per 10 minutes. He was going insane. And you cannot really go head to head against him, because what's the point at that point? You gotta find a way to work around it. And I think Seoul Dynasty opting more to play these double sniper compositions, but also integrating the Ash on perhaps maps where you cannot play the Hanzo as much. I think that is going to be more of what we see in the rest of this series. So very interesting compositional choices from Seoul Dynasty.
Well, if we're looking at map number 2, though, on Kings Row, yeah, it was a bit of a slow start for the Seoul Dynasty, but once they got rolling, they almost managed to actually at least draw the map, and a lot of that was actually on the back of Profit, who completely and utterly tried to carry ever since they came out of the gates, and at some points he actually managed, Costa.
Playoff Profit Hanzo is just a thing to behold. You can see that he definitely struggled, like the team struggled. As you said, they almost got full held. They lost 3 points. But Profit's still here, showing 9.3 final blows per 10 minutes, getting so many important pickoffs. But unfortunately, it feels like he is getting pressured so much. Due to the way that the San Francisco Shock are playing, they're not really enabling Profit and Gesture to play that aggressive style because they are playing so far back. But Profit's still getting those kills when it matters most. But they need to make some small adaptations because they couldn't finish Kings Row.
Yeah, the one thing about Profit is that he's generally known as the game changer, right? Because he can come up with these plays out of nowhere and really change the tide of some of these fights. Another player on the Seoul Dynasty that usually had this tendency was Gesture on this Roadhog, but so far it actually has been a real MTD, a real main tank difference, because so far Gesture has been totally shut down by Super on the San Francisco Shock. Coming out in this series and both playing Oasis and Kings Row, Super has been the superior Roadhog, and they've successfully managed to shut down Gesture. That has been the big difference, and it allows Seoul Dynasty to not really have this same amount of impact when it comes to the double sniper composition, because if Gesture gets shut down, that means that you can have your eyes forward and you can focus down on Fitz and Profit. So for our crunch time, presented by Pringles Wavy, let's take a look at the head-to-head stats between Gesture and Super, and you can see for yourself so far that Super's final blows per 10 minutes, almost double that of Gesture so far as Roadhog in this match. And this has been the big difference maker, main tank difference all the way. Meme come true. You love to see it, right?
Oh,
so
man.
if Seoul Dynasty want to turn this around, they have to find a way to shut down Super on this Roadhog.
Yeah. Did you just coin the term MTD?
No.
Has that been
That's a
out?
legendary
This is the
meme.
first
Oh,
time
yes.
I'm hearing it, and it sounds like something you should be tested for, but it's definitely, it hits different. It's beautiful, absolutely. Now, this is very interesting, though. I just generally love the story we have from Super coming into this playoffs weekend, not playoffs, the grand finals weekend, rather, because, obviously he has been a staple in the Shock's roster, and then he has been benched for quite some time towards the tail end of the season, and now he's coming back, not on the Genji, like there is no memeing around here. He's just a legit awesome Roadhog player going toe-to-toe with the best of the league. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah, and I think we all know Super for this. He's kind of memed as a Roadhog one-trick, and that's because of the phenomenal 2019 season that he had, where he was so impactful in them winning last year. But he comes in, we know him as so versatile. He's been around since the Overwatch beta, and he's been so impactful on so many different things, and he's showing his flexibility and his ability to play damage roles as well on this Roadhog. It's definitely a main tank difference. He's been so aggressive, and he's really proving that, anything Gesture can do, I can do better. So the finisher may actually be in this building. He might actually put this Seoul Dynasty anime arc to an end with the finisher.
No,
yes.
I'm not having it. We're not nicknaming him the finisher.
Yeah, for now we're not, but we might in the end. The series is still not over. This is only 2 maps for the Shock, and they still have a little way to go. And Kasta, we've kind of been here before, like the Seoul Dynasty in their first match, they've been on the back foot as well.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've been in this scenario this weekend. Seoul Dynasty, last time the Shock played, went down 2 maps off the bat in pretty convincing fashion like we've seen so far today. But after this things, they made the adaptation, Prophet came alive, Gesture started getting more space, and that was what sort of caused almost the reverse sweep from the Seoul Dynasty. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see another resurgence from this team.
Well, Jonathan, we are heading on to Hanamura next. And last time they faced off against each other, it was Volskaya. Now it's Hanamura. Yeah. Once we heard word of the map, I believe the word throw was thrown around here in our green room. So you don't seem happy with the choice. Why is that?
Okay, look. I know I predicted the Seoul Dynasty to win this series 4-3.
Yeah.
I predicted Shock to win control map, but I thought they would turn it back on some of these assault maps. Hanamura ain't it. It ain't it, fam. You shouldn't have gone to Hanamura. In 2019 and 2020, the San Francisco Shock are 18-0 on Hanamura. 18-0!
Yes.
They haven't lost Hanamura since 2018. So, Seoul Dynasty here, picking Hanamura. Oof.
Bit of a oof. What Costa? Okay, well, why do you think they picked Hanamura? Do you feel like there's something the Seoul Dynasty is up in their sleeves on Hanamura? Anything you maybe see coming?
We've seen Seoul Dynasty play this so far this weekend only one time, and we saw the Prophet Pharah. I'm curious to know if it's not working for them so far trying to play this style of the double sniper. Are they going to make this adaptation of the Pharah? We've seen it used throughout the history of Overwatch, the Pharah on the defense and the attack, with very mixed success because it is very hard to get those sightlines, and if you can't get that aggression, it falls flat very quickly. So I'm with Johnny a little bit. If that is their solution to this problem, oof might be the right word.
Oh man, but honestly, like okay, so kind of trying to betting on your Pharah there when we already saw on control map that San Francisco Shock didn't anticipate that Pharah coming out of Prophet. They made adjustments in their backlines, to actually counter that. Jonathan, do you agree? Do you think that the San Francisco Shock will once more read this map pick accordingly and also adjust their composition?
I mean, there are some good sight lines if you want to play a Hanzo and a Widowmaker type of composition. Now, I think that Striker will actually be able to play some Tracer on point B and be able to flank around there on Hanamura. Prophet could play the Pharah. The thing is, I do not think that Prophet can get away with playing Pharah in this match at all, because we've seen Violet so many times in this Grand Finals weekend swap over to the Baptiste, and that is a real game changer. When you can play Baptiste and be able to peel away the Pharah by yourself, and also drop the Immortality field if Pharah Barrage comes in, that's such a big difference maker. So picking Baptiste is going to be key for Violet in case you face off against the Prophet Pharah. So therefore, I don't think that Seoul can rely on the Pharah at all. I think that they have to play this double sniper composition. It's the only bet for the Seoul Dynasty moving forward, in my opinion.
But what a flex it will be for the Seoul Dynasty to actually run away with Hanamura after looking at the record from the San Francisco Shock. That will be quite a moment. Let's see. This series is far from over, and for all the action over on Hanamura, map number 3, we once more send it back over to Uber and Mr. X.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
Back in the spawn room, it's Golden Boy with another amazing chance for all of you from around the world to get your Overwatch on. From your grand finals prediction to a shout out to your favorite player or team to posting a pic, or if you just want to say hi to little old me, I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and use hashtag CheckMeOWL and hashtag OWL2020 and post a message on our grand finals social wall. It's your voice, it's your time. Celebrate with us and share your Overwatch League pride. So much more from the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals coming up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League.
IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League. And by State Farm. For auto, home or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Is it deja vu? Or perhaps for the Seoul Dynasty, it's Groundhog Day. Welcome back to the 2020 Grand Finals presented by IBM. I'm Mitch Leslie here with Matt Morello, of course. And I mean, a tough start for the Seoul Dynasty in this series. It's a first to 4. They start 0-2 down. And the Assault map pick from them is an interesting one.
Yeah, they go to Hanamura. The San Francisco Shock are extremely good at this map. I do wonder why they've decided to come to this map. The only thing I can think of is like maybe they have some type of strategy that they planned like in advance, or the fact that they played the Shock on Volskaya, they were able to get a win there. The Shock now have gone back and kind of looked over a lot of that footage, and maybe they thought the Shock would have come back looking much better on Volskaya. I think if you look at that lens, you're probably looking a little bit too deep into it, considering this is a map that Like San Francisco never loses. They never lose this map. It's a really risky pick.
And very quickly as well, just want to let everybody at home know that the Overwatch League website is now back to functionality. Thank you very much for your patience, and go and head over there and enjoy the goodies. It's a gambit, right? I think at this point for the Seoul Dynasty, if they want to take a victory in this kind of match, they have to do something crazy. Do you think they really care about those stats, though? You have to, like, the desk teased this, like, Prophet Farah. Do you think that is sort of a reasonable expectation going forward?
You kind of go through the different heroes they could play. I mean, maybe a Farah, maybe they try and play some Sombra stuff. Still, you don't really like any of it against what San Francisco's pushing back with.
Not only do San Francisco not lose on Hanamura, they also have two of our fastest map records presented by Xfinity at number 2 and number 4. I mean, you can kind of throw the first one out, Fuel versus Justice. It was a little bit of a different time, but the Valiant, obviously a quality team, and Shock really punished them on this map. And we have seen what San Francisco bring against that Farah, right? Prophet tried to play Farah against them right at the start of the grand finals presented by IVM, and it was a Baptiste pick from Violet that clipped Prophet's wings.
They don't have to change just outside of that. You bring in the Baptiste, you have great long-range hit scan with Ons, and also you've had nobody be able to pressure Ons out for the Seoul Dynasty, really at all. So I think this is a gamble. This is a real big gamble, but I think at this point, Seoul Dynasty, they need to hit on something. They need something to happen here.
Seoul Dynasty delving deep for something special, and they're going to do it on what may as well be San Francisco's home ground. It's Hanamura for map number 3 in this first of 4 series, and the San Francisco Shock will start on defense, and they are ready for airborne threats, Matt. They've got double hit scan.
What almost would be weirder is if they pick this map and they don't have anything special per se planned. That would almost be weirder in the sense that, like, you haven't looked good in the mirror, so but then you beat them on a map in the assault pool.
13-0.
And then you go somewhere else. It would be really odd. Violet coming out on the Zen right away tells you they didn't really think that there would be any kind of threat of the Prophet Farah. Fitz is most likely to teleport forward, or do they want to TP to the point? We do see some sim on this map. Is this something that they want to stay on longer? Oh my! Look, if you had a planned strategy at the beginning, it may just be completely ruined now. That is Violet with a pick on a Prophet. Early, you've burned a res. Now they know you're already playing the Symmetra. They're going to have to take a different route. They may have wanted to play on the point, but obviously not anymore.
So Fitz heads back to spawn. The rest of his team does get teleported. This is reminiscent of what San Francisco tried on Kings Road. It gets the Dynasty in a more commanding position and allows them to cross the gap without taking all this poke damage from Arns, and especially Striker.
I was going to say, a big difference here is Striker's playing Ashe here instead of Hanzo. So 2 really long-range hit scan. They can just kind of take different angles, crossfire each other. Be very difficult even for the Widowmaker, because the sightlines here on Hanamura for Fitz, it kind of plays into the Ashe's effective range.
Striker there, getting pressured and is forced out of line of sight, but Gesture doesn't go anywhere from that corner. He has to wait for a chance to get out, and he is denied it. Violet claims him again and continuing to be that DPS, the only player with final blows on the San Francisco Shock right now, until Super.
And he was putting pressure on the choke the entire time. Like the desk has talked about, I think one of, if not the biggest difference in the series so far has been Super. Whether it's shutting down Gesture or just causing a lot of havoc. He's almost playing how Gesture was playing, right? We're going on these like flanks, but also being a little bit more careful as there's still players here for Seoul Dynasty. Marvel will be on the point.
Fitz has a very obscure angle here, but with Super going down, the Dynasty might have a chance, yes, to push all their players here onto the point. Jess is in a really commanding flank position, but can't interact presently with Violet, who's in Transcendence. Still, the hook on the Moth will do the job, but even the healing from Violet is not going to be enough to keep the Mercy alive. Choihyobin goes over the edge, and it looks like San Francisco will abandon this defense attempt. The Dynasty finagle their way into position, Matt. The route maneuvering finally bears fruit.
Yeah, and that time you see Gesture actually get to one of those advantageous positions, one of those flanks.
Wait a minute.
Make a big difference as Striker will switch. You still have Ons here.
That's a big stagger.
Drop. Yeah, he'll get that fast spawn though, so he'll be right back up into the action. So you don't miss a beat here if you're the Shock.
Super in position just to stop any flank attempts here. This allows Striker to potentially make a foray of his own, especially in the absence of Prophet now. And Striker, unseen, can he interrupt this Resurrect? No, his vision's obscured by the cherry blossoms. Otherwise, a fantastic ornamental piece for this map. In that case, a nuisance.
Soul just waiting a bit. And everybody in position, but also giving time for San Francisco to take some of these wider angles. As Fitz will use Infrasight, same with Ons.
What do the Dynasty do with this information? Arns has found a big headshot on Super. Prophet tried to capitalize, playing from the other side. Two sides of the same pincer for the Dynasty, but neither have drawn blood. That's aggressive from Prophet. He dives forward. Is he in a position to pressure Striker back? That Sonic Arrow is going to give him the information, but in no position to go for it. Gesture, though, he's right in spawn.
And they've used Valkyrie and Nano here, as this will be Transcendence out of the spawn here for Violet. So it's almost 2 ticks for Seoul Dynasty. It'll be Gravitic Flux up in the sky, taking out Gesture. Marvel will fall, but you do have some progress made for the Seoul Dynasty. A lot to use just to get in. And on a map like this, Mitch, right, it makes it even harder, I think, for Gesture. There's not a lot of angles where you can flank or kind of get these odd positions on, especially kind of attacking. He also has to walk into the Zenyatta, which the Discord Orb is going to come down at range. You have these snipers. It's so difficult, one, to just keep him alive, and also for him to make a huge impact.
Is there any world where, I mean, Gesture can safely walk through main against this Zenyatta? Do they have to go to the high ground of the Dynasty?
I mean, he has to. If you go main, you're almost certain to get Discord and then just kind of shot from the high ground at multiple angles. He's going to try it here, and look at this. Already just takes a shot, has to drop down.
Or maybe he wanted to. This actually allows him to access the left-hand side of this last temple area without jumping over an uncrossable gap. Gesture gets Super. The little flank around maneuver finally pays off, and Violet has also gone down. San Francisco will have players coming back into formation now, and Moth hasn't used that Resurrect yet. He may have to now, though. Strike has been removed. That's the Valkyrie from Moth being used. 2 ticks here for the Dynasty, Matt.
Yes, Moth has to just fly onto the point, try and get a contest. It'll be Violet, takes out Gesture on the point. You have Super just sleeping here. But look at this, Violet just taking out the tanks in his back line. First takes out Gesture, then takes out Marvel. This Violet has had an unbelievable impact on the Zenyatta.
He currently sits at 6 final blows. And make it 7! This guy is absolutely out of his mind! Above and beyond the Call of Duty goes Violet. He tweeted earlier today on social media, it's edited a picture of himself with like those red Terminator eyes that said, I have to win, I have to win, I have to win. That is hunger. But that was just talk. In-game, that hunger is now personified.
Now we're down to a minute on the clock for Seoul Dynasty. They'll have both of these support ults. That's how they were able to get in the last time. Valkyrie plus a nano boost on a Gesture. You needed that extra durability on a Gesture to get towards the point. The bad part for Seoul Dynasty, as you'll have a Transcendence, you'll have that Gravitic Flux plus Dragon Strike combo. They have to be careful, all clumping up here on the high ground.
45 seconds remain. The Dynasty's reasonable time bank has dwindled to less than 1 minute. The upside for them is that they have some big ultimates to leverage here.
Yeah, but they're going to get in a position where they have to fight on the point. And this Gravitic Flux plus Transcendence is going to be huge.
1 tick, though. That's all Gesture needs. He tries the whole hog, but Super again ruins his day. He can't escape, despite the fact he was being healed by Tobi. Arns is able to cut him down to size. Marvel sets up on the point now, but Fitz just disintegrates under the scrutiny of Violet. It's another Harmony Orb. And Striker can sit on the point now. Marvel's so low. Arns has a perfect angle for this, but there aren't any players for the Shock on the ground. And the Dynasty, fantastic comeback to work their way through. They were short-handed in that fight, Matt.
Yeah, but they're able to get rid of Choihyobin earlier. They're not able to get a res, so he never gets a use of that Gravitic Flux I was talking about, and that's huge because you're not playing with a big support ult for Seoul Dynasty. You don't have a Zenyatta, so it would have been devastating for Seoul to deal with.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to make some noise. You can use the cheer function on overwatchleague.com/react to cheer live for your team, brought to you by Coca-Cola. Just like we've had in years gone by, we want to fill this arena with your energy. We've already been really enjoying seeing you guys in the T-Mobile Skybox. It's such a pleasure to get to share this moment with you, and my God, I'm hearing it already. Let's go, baby. The Dynasty just finished the map, but the Shock now kind of have a decent idea of how they match up or how they need to match up on the attacking side.
So now they expect the bar. This is almost, you think back to like how you kind of play far on defense on a map almost like Eichenwald, right? You can kind of play around that center pillar, really to kind of deny any lines of sight. You can kind of play around a lot of these roofs here. So we take a look at the end of the round. Seeing Moth going for a res. Ooh, he gets taken out right at the last second.
Matt, Violet is absolutely out of control. And look at this. He's ready with the Baptiste. He knows that Prophet's going to be trying for the Pharah. He is 8 final blows and 4 deaths. He leads the Shock by a decent margin. He's almost deadlifting his team.
I love this adjustment from San Francisco. You play Violet on the Baptiste, but you also ditch the Roadhog here, and you play the Wrecking Ball in the Tracer.
The Super Bowl.
Instead of fighting at the choke, right? You just get on it and just put pressure on the backline. Try and make this Pharah almost useless, and if Striker and Super can get into the back and get some pickoffs, it makes the Pharahs very difficult to make a huge impact.
This setup, though, for Seoul is incredibly oppressive. You can see how safely Prophet can rain those rockets down, Matt.
Ons takes out the Mercy, though. So they don't have a Mercy coming into this next fight. San Francisco have a little bit of a window here. Now, Striker behind enemy lines, a pick on a Creative here would be enormous.
Hunting for Creative. He also sees the Pharah of Prophet close by. He tries for Creative, maybe attempting to bait out the Biotic Grenade, and he does. Creative has to self-heal.
He can go hunt Tobi off spawn now.
Creative getting harassed still, and here comes Super. Rolls straight on through. Striker finds that kill, but it's traded. Super eventually is going to have to get out here, but that's one tick already on the point. And look at this displacement. Soul is being forced away from the point, but they bring Creative back, and they're ready. They've regrouped, and they want to fight.
Yes, that'll be a bob onto the point here from Fitz. It'll be an Amp Matrix drop from Violet. Oh, beautiful hook there from Gesture. That could be huge.
And it is Super taken out of the fight now. The Dynasty had to use a bit in that fight, but Fitz goes down to Striker. A huge pick for the Tracer, who's been lurking for most of the fight, and Arts is brought back into the fray. Marvel trying to desperately protect Tobi, the lifeblood of this Dynasty roster. And Arts has gone down. Gesture has to return to the point here, but Super rolls on in, gets a pile driver, accretion from Marvel to try and slow the ball down. Here's the whole hog from Gesture. Biotic Grenade on Super makes this one really hurt. He'll have to take a breather before he returns to the fight. But San Francisco, they're not done here. They're going to keep trying to apply some pressure.
Yeah, Super will go off, he'll get a health pack, and he'll come back and he'll have a Minefield to drop in a point. Minefield plus like a self-destruct, good enough to clear this out.
Dynasty, all things considered, in a decent spot right now. Great accretion across the map by Marvel. And Arns has to be resurrected here. Super once again, a foray towards the point. The Wrecking Ball in the past, a butt of jokes on his stream now. It may be the secret weapon to get the Shock across the line. And Choihyobin, that's an environmental kill on Fitz. He's knocked off of the clip, and he'll have plenty of time to think about what has happened as the Shock converge on point A, man. They'll capture it, and they'll have a fairly healthy time bank with 4 minutes, 16 seconds.
And they have the answer for this. As soon as they saw the Hanamura pick, it gives a huge kind of a sign going into halftime that something different is going to happen with Seoul Dynasty. And what is it? It's the Pharah on defense. And San Francisco, they solve it. They bring in the Wrecking Ball. They bring in the Diva, the Tracer. They really just go after Seoul's backline aggressively.
Prophet being extremely heavily pressured here, but the rest of the Dynasty are able to deal with Arns, possibly the biggest threat from that high ground.
Now I think you switch, potentially, if you're San Francisco. And you already see Violet make the switch. I think Super and Choihyobin probably switch. Maybe you bring in the Roadhog. Maybe you keep the self-destruct for the next, just trying to make a play. And ooh, it looks like Violet goes back. So maybe they want to keep this going with this type of setup. I do think, with the way they were going, Gesture was starting to heat up a little bit. Make some plays. You saw him get a hook on a Violet, a hook on an Aunt. They have to be careful. They can't let Gesture come alive.
Prophet playing quite far forward there. He's met with the defense matrix of Choihyobin on that Diva, a hero on which he has previously soared to great heights in and out of game. Answer with the accretion. Oh, the 1-2 punch is nasty, but Prophet is traded out elsewhere. Here's a gravitic flux that Choihyobin can't do much about. He'll have to self-destruct to replace. Oh no! Fitz goes down! Choihyobin just wanted a shiny new mech, and instead he gets the scalp of Fitz. Jester's going to be forced off a point now. The Micro Rockets get the job done, and Striker has a big old bomb for Marvel. Jester tries to go for the whole hog. Much of it is nullified by the defense matrix, but he receives a friendly biotic grenade, and he gets a big old hook on a Striker. He'll be knocked off the point now, and the Shocker fairly close to that second tick, but Prophet has returned to the fray. Bob attempts, well, to try and capture the point, but one defends it as well. San Francisco again, it's back to the drawing board, Matt.
Yeah, it's Bobs from both teams there. Towards the end of the fight is this will be a stagger here on Choi.
This is a big stagger.
Yep, he gets back in the mech. Now ooh, the sleep dart comes through. It's going to be a while until he gets back.
Life comes at you fast, Choihyobin.
Yep. They barely put any damage down to do originally when the hook comes down, and then they finish him off.
And that also gives Seoul essentially another fight win there. Arnt's finds a kill on Prophet, but it's not going to be consequential because of the Resurrect. Bit of extra ult charge for Seoul as they head into a fight in which they don't really have much to work with. But let's see how this went down. Violet tries to flank.
Let's see. Ooh, he loaded up a Batiste jump with the Exo jump. It looked like it did not go off when he fell off the side, or he made it just hit the roof a little bit, clipped it. So unfortunate. We'll see though, Ant Matrix plus the Ash set up on the high ground here. See if they're able to push Seoul Dynasty out of this position. This is also one where Gesture's been able to get these big hooks.
Okay, there it is. Immortality Field thrown down by Violet. It's able at least to allow them to get a trade. Tobi's the only support for the Dynasty alive right now, but he gives Gesture a nano boost. So the Shock very wary of this. Striker's looking for Fitz on the point, just a little bit more damage. And yes, Tobi was too far afield, helping his tanks. Prophet though is going to be healed up, and Striker eventually just has to stand out in the open. He had no blinks available. Choihyobin in similar trouble as the kinetic grasp won't keep him alive for very long. And San Francisco go under a minute, but they got that second tick there, Matt.
Yeah, and I think they should have switched off of this a while ago. I think they should have gone, like as soon as you saw Prophet go to Hanzo, I think they probably should have changed to what they've had working almost the entire game. Maybe you don't bring in the Widow, maybe you keep the Ash for just how the point is structured. But now they'll bring in this in, they'll bring in the Roadhog here for the final push.
Prophet thinking about that Dragon Strike. He's got information now. He sees the Shock head to the high ground for the last push of this map. Seoul trying to get one on the board here. Gravitic Flux is going to make it pretty nasty for Violet, who's dropped down, and Prophet meets him with the Dragon Strike. There's nothing San Francisco can do. Prophet will sit pretty up on that high ground now, and Fitz easily dispatches Striker. Or under 5 seconds left, and the Shock don't have the players to touch the point here. Whole hog to secure it, and the Seoul Dynasty fight back. The venerable Tigers finally bare their fangs.
And you know what's kind of, it's so odd. The Hanamura pick we all questioned, and we were like, oh, maybe it's something that the Seoul Dynasty have planned, that the Shock maybe won't expect. They kind of beat them doing what they did in map number 1 and 2. It's just the Shock just refused to match it on point B. They committed to the Tracer, they committed to the Wrecking Ball in the Diva with the Batiste for just way too long, in my opinion. They needed to switch off of that really early on. They got what they wanted. Prophet's playing the Pharah, they get the point, he switches off of it, but they don't go back to what was already working. A little bit of an odd call there from San Francisco. Ends up costing them the map.
Yeah, and may have been a little bit of hubris there, Matt, because that's the first time San Francisco have lost Hanamura all season. And we'll have to see if that plays into their mental state as we head into map number 4. The Dynasty get one on the board, they stay alive and they stay healthy. Let's see if they can even things up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to the spawn room. It's Golden Boy. Time to play Overwatch Hero Trivia. Ready? Because here's your question. This is Ana Amari's call sign when she served in the Egyptian military during the Omnic Crisis. A. Anubis. B. Bastet. C. Horus. The answer? C. Horus. Congrats to everybody that got it right. You're so smart. Of course, there's so much more to come from the Spawn Room and the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals coming right up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League.
And by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
Taken by the Seoul Dynasty here, but it paid off. They have handed San Francisco their first loss on Hanamura for the season. And just as the normies say it, we've got ourselves a ball game, Matt.
The normies say it? Okay, sure. I guess I'd be one of the normies then.
There is nothing normal about your outfit, bro. I'll be honest with you. Perhaps
what do you mean?
You could be an honorary normie, perhaps.
I am the future of the business gamer. That's what it's called. Business gamer dress code.
I tell you what,
it'll be a thing. Trust me.
Well, San Francisco get the business in that third map now. Their pick will be Watchpoint Gibraltar for map number 4. And I mean, Violet looked unbelievable over the last couple of maps. At one point, he was almost deadlifting the entirety of the shock from the Zenyatta position. He stayed on the Baptiste. You mentioned that maybe that wasn't the best decision, that you expected them to switch off of that a little bit earlier on, but you have to feel like Gibraltar's another chance for him to shine as the Dynasty really get going.
They definitely thought about switching off of it a little bit earlier.
We saw it. We saw the conversation happen.
We saw Baptiste, the Violet switch off of the Baptiste, go Zen, then go back to the Baptiste. I think that you switch off of that a little bit earlier, maybe a bit different for the shock. Now you take it over to Gibraltar, and this is one where your Widowmaker can dominate, right? You have Aunts, you kind of picked him up and invested in him as a player in like the long-range hit scan, right? Think of his Ashe, think of his Widowmaker, McCree when McCree's in the meta. This is the moment you expect him to take over, right? You get a map like Gibraltar, the Roadhog is pretty effective here as well. You expect to put Aunts in a position to win you the map. Kind of play around him, play around Violet, always make sure he's up. You have a good chance to win it if you're San Francisco.
The newest addition to the San Francisco shop this season, Aunts. Can he be called upon to give them the boost here against an opposition in Fitz who's really stood up to him?
This is a player in Aunts where when he got signed in the offseason, like nobody really expected him to play this year. It was something where it's like, oh yeah, he's like probably a nice to have like bench player, like you'll use him sparingly maybe. Like nobody really kind of thought of him as this mainstay of the roster, and he's been fantastic in the DPS role. Seoul Dynasty, they will run the Hanzo Widow, same as San Francisco. Biggest difference all series long, though, has been Violet Zen, and the extra damage is provided. Also, the punishment on the gesture with the Discord Orb. So that'll be an early pickoff from Striker here on the Fitz.
And Custer mentioned it on the desk sort of before the game, is that we were expecting the Widowmakers to really make headlines in this metagame, but it's been the Hanzos to find the lion's share of these kills in so many of these maps. Prophet, Striker, both of them move around the map so much, but that's a Widow on Hanzo action, favoring the shot.
And he makes it look so easy. And that is Prophet just peeking out a sliver for a second. Headshot straight away is, I mean, just look at the amount of damage, right? Obviously the shot control the high ground with how Gibraltar is as a map. But look at this, I mean, the Striker up to 60% on his ultimate, Prophet at 15, on 60%, Fitz now, you know, jumps up a little bit, but the amount of damage coming out from the Shock snipers being able to control the high ground with the way Gibraltar is at the start, it's been pretty difficult for Seoul Dynasty to even get like what you kind of traditionally call a team fight.
Keeping an eye on the health bars, you'll see that, you know, both Fitz and Prophet take a couple glancing blows there. It's enough to be healed up, but it still slows the Dynasty down. That's an accretion connection on Striker, but based on where he's set up, he's just safe. Going to be healed up and able to clamber back into position. There's the trade, though. Gesture goes down, and a resurrect here. That is a risky res from Tobi, but they bring... No, they don't. Choihyobin shuts him down.
Yeah, I was going to say that is a much better trade. Like, you'll give up your Hanzo to take out the other team's Roadhog if you cannot get the res. Tobi in a difficult position knows he needs to try and bring back Gesture, but not in a position to do so. And now Fitz, he'll win the Widowmaker battle. See if they can get anything out of it, though.
Well, Tobi has just rejoined them, so that's also plenty of time for Arntz to reinforce. You can see him through the door in wireframe returning. Infrasight is active, though, so Fitz will see exactly where Arntz comes from and will be able to set up in advance. Prophet gets rid of Violet there as well. Information is key, and the Dynasty are using all of it to its fullest now. Super's able to get a trade against Gesture on the card, which is impressive in and of itself, but may not mean too much as the Shock are kind of dashed here.
Yeah, it was like Choi off to the side, I believe, with Violet. Now you'll have Moth. He'll die at the hands of Marvel. Big Gravitic Flux, an accretion on the Striker at the end. And the Shock challenges, though. Violet will come out of the spawn with Choi, and he has the Transcendence. This will be walls as well from Arntz.
Gesture on the Wrecking Ball, not something we've seen so far this series. He tries to challenge Arntz out there, but somehow Arntz is able to find Prophet despite facing the scrutiny of the enemy main tank. That's a Gravitic Flux that the Dynasty would sooner forget about. Super and Arntz capitalize there on the fact that everyone is thrown to the ground. And yes, the Shock almost giving away their point, but they hold with 3, and it's a big pick from Arntz to start things off.
Yeah, Arntz with walls at the beginning, kicks off the fight, but Violet with that Transcendence keeps both tanks alive when the pile drive comes down from Gesture. Is Choi and Super were both quite low at the time. And now you put yourself in a tough position for Seoul Dynasty. You know, you'll have the Dragon Strike, nothing really combo with it, no like Gravitic Flux. It's so dangerous when you go down to the wire like this, especially in a double sniper meta, because one thing goes wrong, right? Somebody peeks an angle and dies. It kind of spells a real bad trouble for your team. And as I mentioned, that Striker with the damage boost takes out Marvel. They'll be able to get a res, though.
Yeah, it's not just who dies, Matt, but where. In that case, it was a safe position that Tobi could bring Marvel back into the fight, kind of just scrub over that mistake that was made. Violet falls to Gesture there, who seems to have gone far afield to try and find the kills, and Super is dealing with players at multiple angles. Prophet for a moment studies Choihyobin, trying to find his head, but he didn't need to. Gesture again steps up when it counts, and the Dynasty at risk of running out of gas right there and then. Now they're starting to build ahead of Steve.
We saw it a little bit from, I believe it was Fitz's POV when he was down by the cart. They got Violet in a really difficult position. Fitz actually hits a shot onto Violet, doesn't kill him, and you can actually see Violet. Obviously, we have the ability to see the X-ray. Fitz does not, but he's just stuck in a really bad spot behind a wall. Gesture's able to get that pick off. Not able to even use a Transcendence there. Now, what could have been a final fight. So, Marvel early on. They'll use the Gravitic Flux, and I like this use early on. You know you guarantee a kill. This will buy you a lot of cart progress.
There's a real intangible risk here that the Shock just get completely shut out of this part of the map. Attackers have a big advantage here, and if they can move up like Prophet has done, it's so lethal for the Shock to pick any of these 4 doorways. They have to filter in one by one. Super there's hit with a Bionic Grenade. Creative, fantastic play. Not only keeps Marvel topped up, it makes it impossible for Super to heal himself.
In last map, the Shock, I know they committed to their composition for way too long. This map, Seoul Dynasty, they take that checkpoint B. This map so far, they've looked a bit sloppy. It seems like players just getting a little bit too far, out of position, a little bit over-aggressive, I would say. I know Super kind of in that doorway. He can't really fall back to the rest of the team the way that it's gone, but Marvel with 2 early pickoffs, right, puts him in a bad position. Then early on that point A, like I mentioned, they catch Violet off on his own. So Shot need to stabilize here. They need to get a pick. They need to get some type of defense going as Seoul Dynasty is starting to hit a stride on offense.
Right now, Prophet looking to get in position. Maybe catch Arms by surprise, and he's done so. He drops over the top of the tank there, and he finds him. It's a Sonic Arrow intended just for information, but he'll take the headshot happily. Gesture there puts Violet in such a compromising position, who has to stay behind that stack of boxes. Super himself has to go deep into enemy territory to try and slow the cart down. It works, but not for long.
Yeah, so they don't make any cart progress out of this. We'll see, though, if it pays off. This will be a Transcendence used from Violet, comes out of the spawn. I think trying to keep Choi up as they'll end up using the Transcendence to get a res on a striker.
Yeah, again, San Francisco compromising position for them. The Dynasty have had pretty much the run of the place ever since that first checkpoint was taken. That's a kill that could slow the momentum down, though. Marvel held aloft, and Super drags him on in for a bear hug. Gesture now has to back away here, but still threat from Prophet. Dodges the hook deftly and is able to get out. There's still the risk of Gesture here on this left-hand side, but Striker wants to forge ahead.
You see they're getting aggressive, pushing them back, needs to buy themselves space here. Seoul Dynasty still has some time to work with. They'll lose Creative, they lose Gesture, they res Creative, but you're still going to have to wait. You do have the Nano Boost. You've been able to use the Nano Boost on a Gesture.
Oh my!
Striker just goes over the wall trying to get a shot.
That's too dangerous to res.
But yeah, no, absolutely. You'll wait for him to come off the spawn. No reason to try and res in that position, but a lot of ultimates for Seoul Dynasty here to try and push it over the line.
Look where Prophet gets to play now. He was playing on that upper bridge after that pick. This is much more aggressive than he otherwise would have been, but he found the first kill, or was it Fitz that got it? Gravitic Flux from Marvel. He goes over the top. He catches Violet here. This is dangerous now for the Zenyatta. Violet needs to try and stay alive. Prophet wants to push him to the right-hand side as well. And that's a big hook on Choihyobin, and he's for dinner. As Gesture cleans him up now, gets himself a Nano Boost. The whole hog combo pins Super up against the wall, and that card is sailing on home. It's going to be some stall attempt here, but it was really a token effort as the shock finally stopped the Dynasty. 18 seconds on the clock.
And they finished with time in the bank. So we'll see now what San Francisco does on their offensive attack. I expect both compositions to remain the same all throughout. I think the shock, they need to just take a little bit of a breather. I almost felt like in the Hanamura game, once they actually got past the Pharah, they kind of got, maybe stayed on it a little bit too long, the composition, and they kind of feel themselves a little bit. I almost feel the same way coming into this map, a little bit too aggressive at times, probably feeling they had a little bit more control over the series than they may actually have.
Ladies and gentlemen, show us where you're cheering from by using the hashtag #CheckMeOw and hashtag OWL2020 during today's show for a chance to see your tweets live up there on the tag board. We've seen a couple of them. Thank you for getting involved. Thank you for interacting, because we have a smorgasbord of Overwatch goodness for us right now. All that Seoul had to do on Hanamura to win it was to finish the map with some time in the bank. They've done the same here on Gibraltar. That is no mean feat. The map is long and it's treacherous, Matt.
We'll see from Fitz's POV at the end, the whole hog knocking Super back. And he knows that they're going to go for the res straight away. It's shot on a Moth, puts him away, and that pretty much puts the map in Seoul Dynasty's favor. So we are going to see the Prophet Genji here.
Why? What? What's the purpose of this? Is this a risk?
They will opt to drop the double sniper to play Genji. This is something where you can definitely, Prophet is a very good Genji. You can put a little bit more pressure onto the backline. You can also play around Nano Blades. Right? Get the Transcendence out from Violet. Get more value out of your Gravitic Flux. Still, it's just a little bit odder considering how dominant the double sniper has been. As Strike will be on the Ash, so not playing the Hanzo here either.
The Dynasty find another way to get value out of Creative's Nano Boost outside of just the damage reduction for Gesture, or an extra boost to his whole hog damage.
No one can
Carter's
hide
moved up
from my sight.
close to the end of that underpass now, and Fitz has got a pretty early infra sight away. My God, Prophet! He reflects that one back on Striker. The egg on San Francisco. Shock space there. And now Prophet looking for the rest of the breakfast.
So, we know what type of Genji that Prophet has. It's just Genji's not the same hero as he was, what, a month or two ago. So we can take a look in Prophet's POV. Was that actually not even
That might have been Violet.
Striker's shot? It looks like it was Violet's, directed right back towards Striker's head. So quite unfortunate for Striker. Didn't even look like he was aiming at Prophet.
Seoul Dynasty, all of a sudden, invigorated, looking full of life. The San Francisco Shock, they're the ones that are being forced to try and come up with an answer to all of this, and there is a Dragon Blade for Prophet. No accompanying Nano Boost ready for it yet. We've seen what we call naked Dragon Blades in the past, but likely the Dynasty try not to take a risk there. There's a trade-in kills. Prophet for Striker. Tough to get a res on the Genji. He's always far forward, but that one was in friendly territory, and he's able to be brought back.
And you expect the Nano Blade when Creative gets this Nano. There it is.
One down, Prophet, two. The Sushi Chef strikes. And he's looking for more. The Roadhog's going to hook him in with a Biotic Grenade given by Creative. Again, that is the full service package from Creative. Nano Boost supplied, healing throughout the blade. The San Francisco Shock gets sliced up.
Oh, and that is Moth with Valkyrie there, and he's actually just kind of lurking up on the bridge, trying to heal some of his teammates down by the cart. And now Prophet with just the swipe takes him out. It's a no support ult now for San Francisco. Striker will switch over to the Hanzo here, so you'll ditch the Ashe. It's Seoul Dynasty. They pull out all the stops the last two maps. They go to Hanamura, which just seemed like a crazy pick. They end up winning that. They win the Shock's map pick here. They are right back in it in a big way.
They will have taken all of the wind out of the Shock's sails here. It's the second big gambit for the Dynasty in as many maps, and it's paying off so far. Super's going to be healed up briefly, and Violet's going to be able to return to the fray. And Moth falls foul of a poison mine of all things. Art's hooked in for Gesture. And the San Francisco Shock are reeling.
And they are not punishing Gesture as much as they were earlier in the series. They're doing a much better job not letting Gesture make these huge effects on the game. Now Gesture is starting to connect with these hooks, get these pickoffs. A lot like how we saw Super earlier on. Really control. And this is going to be almost impossible, Mitch. San Francisco, 20 seconds on the clock. No ultimates across the board. Walking right into a Nano Blade from Prophet.
Prophet licking his lips and sharpening the blade. Huge accretion on the high ground. That's going to rattle Striker. Still, there'll be some time for San Francisco to set up. That's the Nano Boost now. Striker. Oh my God! Super gets the hook. It's traded out though. Now on the card, it's going to be an accretion over towards Gesture, and Fitz is going to sit in the background. Finds a shot towards Striker, but has to get out of line of sight. But overtime is ticking down, and Gesture was there with the whole hook, but it's not enough to stop the Shock. Big Biotic Grenade. A huge one from Creative. I can't believe he's come back and managed to take this over. The underplay is filthy, and the Dynasty get a second map. This is a match.
You could not. San Francisco in such a tough spot. The Nano Blade comes through in a Super with a huge hook and a kill right away. But towards the end, man, Creative, like you mentioned, I believe it was a 4-player Biotic Grenade onto the cart. You're able to finish those players off as Seoul Dynasty ties this series. A lot like what we saw in their earlier matchup in the Overwatch League Grand Finals presented by IBM. We'll see if the Shock can bounce back, as the Seoul Dynasty has them reeling now.
I mean, the Dynasty, first of all, they choose the audacity to choose a map the Shock hasn't lost on this season. They win that. They go to Gibraltar. They pick a Genji of all things, and it pays off. It was Creative at the end that really had to step up. What do the Shock have left in terms of answers, in terms of maps? Stick around. We're about to find out.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League. And by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the spawn room. It's Golden Boy. Time to play Name That Map. And don't just name it as fast as you can. You'll see what I mean here in a moment. Just go ahead and name that map. Okay, I don't think I recognize that awning. Never mind. Okay, I know that building. That's right, folks. It's Hollywood. All right. Congratulations to everybody that got it right. So much more to come for the spawn room and much more from the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals coming right up.
Last year, the Wells Fargo Center was lit alight by the San Francisco Shoppers. They held aloft the Overwatch League trophy in a one-sided victory against the Vancouver Titans.
Yeah.
The Dynasty, Matt, have no interest in making it remotely as easy this year. They even up the series. They take some risks that no other team in their right mind would take in their situation, but they've been rewarded for that, and it's a 2-2 series. It's just incredible.
The risk to go to Hanamura ends up paying off. And then also the risk to bring out the Genji to maybe trying to, I guess, kind of control the high ground a little bit more. Also for the Nanoblade combo ends up paying off. And I think if you're San Francisco, you're a little bit rattled right now, right? You don't. A lot of times the Shock are the one who are making these, mid-game adjustments that are really paying off. Kind of one step ahead of the opponent. We've now seen the Seoul Dynasty pull that out twice. This next map is going to be massive. The first control map was pretty much dominated by San Francisco. If Seoul is able to rattle off 3 wins in a row, they are so close to really kind of rattling off that 4 in a row to win this series.
Matt, it's not quite a reverse sweep, but it is pretty darn close what the Dynasty have been able to do to turn things around. And the Shock have been in this position, right? They have had to come back from big deficits. They have had losses on record recently, right? They didn't win every one of our monthly cups. They're no strangers to adversity. But this is a little different. I think at this point we can safely throw out the idea of a map win record about optimal composition. Nothing matters that occurred outside of this game. It'll develop its own meta, and our expectations had to adjust.
We do have a sub for this map. It'll be Smurf, who will come in for Super. It is kind of wild to think about, San Francisco. They always have these, when they lose, it's always like a long drawn-out series, it feels like. For a team to potentially beat them 4 games straight, it's like almost unthinkable. When we were doing our bracket for Planet Chat, kind of looked at it and it was like, man, it's so hard to predict a team like the San Francisco Shock losing 2 games in a row, pretty much, like 2 series, let alone 4 maps in 1 series. And especially in this type of fashion, if Seoul is able to win this one and then potentially get that final clincher, it'd be unreal. It'd be an all-time performance as a team.
Matt, at first it was Violet with this incredible Zenyatta performance, showing that that flex support role can really dominate when it comes to damage. Then it was Creative who stepped up and said, I don't need to do damage to have a gigantic impact on the game. They switch Prophet to Genji, unlocking the potential of that nano boost, and then Creative ends the round with an ungodly 4-player biotic grenade to seal the deal. Both of these teams stacked with talent. Now as we head out onto Busan, it's time for them to clash heads once more and see which team heads into the next break at a map lead.
Yeah, and the Shock, they ditch the whole the Roadhog again. They did it a little bit on the first one. Actually, they played Super on the first one. They played Hog with the ball. This time they played Choi on the Sigma, but they also played the ball. So they play the Wrecking Ball with the Tracer here to try and pressure the back line. And look at this. Seoul Dynasty, they just try and push straight on through. They get Choi, but they lose everybody else.
Yep, the wrap from the backside was there for the San Francisco Shock. It was a very nice dynamite placement that got Choihyobin, but the rest of San Francisco had already gone for a flank. That play was pulled off on an absolute dime, and the Dynasty were not ready.
And they'll give up Choi's life to be able to take out 1 or 2 players in the backline every single time. You can double back and res. You see just the amount of pressure, right? The shots from Striker off to the side, the Wrecking Ball damage, and this just opens up so many angles for Ons.
Striker's still in the mix though, even after losing Choihyobin. The shield's gone for the San Francisco Shock, but Striker would rather use the sword. Violet gives Marvel a Cossack kick in the breadbasket. And the San Francisco Shock want to brawl. You can see that clearly, and they already hold the point, so they don't care how long these fights go, Matt.
Yeah, now at Seoul Dynasty, they'll make an adjustment. So they'll have Fitz come in and play the Sombra, try and get a hack onto this Wrecking Ball, prevent the disruption coming on through. Wrecking Ball, once it gets hacked, it's not a lot he can do. So if you're able to get a hack onto this Wrecking Ball, stop him from coming into your backline, they almost want to try and force San Francisco Shock to switch to the Roadhog, because you do think that if the Shock were going to play Roadhog consistently, they would have loved to have Super in the game.
That was clever by Prophet. He notices what's happening. Oh my Marvel interrupts and Resurrect and gets the kill on Moth. The accretion with the damage boost, that is ungodly. And the Shock leads 62%. It looks like Violet's going to expend the Transcendence to try and keep this point going. Choihyobin, though, can't benefit from healing when he's in the drink. He's knocked off the map. And the Seoul Dynasty will be able to take the point as the hack on the Striker means he can't recall.
I think if you're the Shock, and if you're a Shock fan, you'd be a little bit worried if they're not able to figure this out with the Sombra in play. Potentially you have to change some other things to kind of work around it that don't exactly work in their favor. But they do have a lot of percentage on the point, right? So they can stay on with this a bit longer. You also have a minefield here. But Fitz is going to be able to build up towards this EMP rather quickly.
Smurf takes a bunch of damage, forced to back away for a moment. And, okay, Marvel's happy just catching Choihyobin inside the Gravitic Flux. And look at the wraparound there from Gesture. Ready with open arms to catch Choihyobin as he landed.
They use the Gravitic Flux. You can hold on your EMP here. So if they try and push through this choke, you can see the EMP come on through from Seoul Dynasty. A lot of damage kind of follows that up. San Francisco may end up just kind of like walking in here, baiting it out, as this will be the EMP from Fitz.
Yeah, it comes out. A lot of damage early onto Gesture by the looks of things there, but Fitz, big EMP, exactly what the Shock needed, and the Valkyrie was even expended there by San Francisco. Maybe a glimmer of belief that they could still win despite having their abilities taken away. And now the
maybe they didn't think there was going to be that much damage following it up straight away, but it most certainly was.
The Dynasty now start to approach the Shock's total, 63% and counting. What does the Shock work with here? Not a lot of combo mechanics. Choihyobin's hacked here. Fitz is going to harass him. And oh, is there going to be help? Yes! Another pincer move. Gesture taken down by a Pulse Bomb, and Prophet and Smurf both go by the wayside. And amidst the fight, Striker's able to take the point back. That is a huge fact that cannot be overlooked. Now the Shock are in control, and they can stall out a fight or go for the throat here. Smurf's trying to push in. Violet gets taken down, and the Dynamite deals with Moth. 90% for San Francisco, with Tobi out of the picture and no Resurrect. Marvel still respects Arms despite going for a bit of a 1v1. Prophet has to coach gun himself away from trouble. 98% and counting. Smurf goes down. Choihyobin stalls for 99, and that's what the Shock will have to work with for the next fight.
Yeah, and you look at these hacks from Fitz, right? Both tanks drop to the point. He gets a hack on the Smurf. They deal with him. Choi drops down. They get another hack. They're able to deal with Choihyobin. So this is going to be really bad for San Francisco. EMP plus Bob they're walking into. There's the EMP. They only get Smurf. They're not able to finish it off. So actually kind of plays out pretty well for San Francisco. They just lose Violet.
That is not a kill.
And Gesture Falls just kind of running on in.
Not a kill that the Dynasty could afford to give up. Now Bob hits the point. He can't contest, the walls are down, but I think that was a risk that Arms just wanted to take. He's going to find Prophet anyway. He's happy with a clearer shot. Prophet's going to be brought back into the fight here, but Arms had already found Fitz. Sombra is down. Prophet, what can he do in the absence of his other DPS player? There's an Anaboost here from Creative and a Biotic grenade to potentially shut down his Transcendence from Violet, but Creative saves it as Marvel goes over the edge. Bob, though, what timing from Prophet. It keeps the port stalled out for a little while and allows the Dynasty to play in from the outside, but Creative is down. Striker has a pulse bomb. He's going to be looking for the enemy Mercy here. Can he let this one go? Moth is removed. Trying to fly towards the point is Tobi now to keep things going. But overtime is ticking down, and the Dynasty nowhere to be seen.
And I believe what happens with Marvel, you have to get a replay, but I believe in the previous fight he's so low and he's by the point, and he ends up kind of taking himself out with some of his passive damage from his Hyperspheres. And he has a Gravitic Flux at that moment. It's pretty unfortunate there for Seoul Dynasty. Didn't look good for them early on, but they're able to bring that point all the way to 99-99. We'll see how some of these compositions change up going into this next point.
Shock fans absolutely popping off on the T-Mobile skybox there. San Francisco have always looked good on these control maps, and the positive side for them is that I think maps 8 onward are all control maps after we've exhausted our escort and assault maps. So, I mean, if the game goes that long, San Francisco are definitely favored. But the Seoul Dynasty are always looking dangerous. And they're going to come out with a Sombra again.
There's a big problem, Mitch. You get 10 maps, there's a big problem.
It's impossible. Not possible.
Yeah. So, it'll be Fitz on the Sombra again. So they make this adjustment straight away. They know that you'll have Smurf playing the Wrecking Ball here. You're going to have Fitz play the Sombra. Try and make it even harder for the Shock players to access the back line.
And that's the early pick. Fitz is starting to feel the Sombra, even if it didn't quite get the Dynasty across the line in that last round. If nothing else, just to make Smurf just a little more wary. That hook from Gesture hits any other day, and Violet's lucky to be given a stave execution. Shocker on the point, though. That's where they want to be, and Prophet's down. Let Violet live, and he will come back with a vengeance.
See another passive damage out there from Marvel as well, but they'll deal with Smurf. This will be the point to the San Francisco Shock. You see Tobi just barely trying to hang on for life. Creative healing him up. Not good enough. So, a team wipe there for the San Francisco Shock. Seoul Dynasty, they'll come out of the spawn. They'll be very close to an EMP.
Again, not the start the Dynasty we're looking for here, but you mentioned the EMP. Something they can work with here that really turns the lights off for San Francisco. Moth with the Caduceus Blaster is probing just to see if he can locate Fitz. That would have been a very quick end of the Sombra. But no dice so far. Striker is also on the hunt.
So both teams, Prophet just kind of watching his side angles, waiting for Striker or Smurf to come on in. We're also waiting for Fitz to try and make a play.
He can't catch Creative. He's able to get away. Recall there. Creative tries the sleep dart and doesn't quite connect. Even with the healing of Tobi, they can't keep the Ana alive. And this is where the San Francisco Shock look to pounce. Moth gets the Valkyrie off. Even with the EMP in play, they've lost Violet, but they've still got plenty to work with. And yeah, it's blaster time. Choihyobin probably prefers that Moth give him healing, and he gets it. He used the res as well to cement the fight for San Francisco.
Nah, Seoul Dynasty. Prophet actually hits a huge dynamite, gets a few players low, but Seoul does not have enough damage left. They had both tanks, but they were quite low. They end up dying before there's an opportunity to put down some more damage, finish those players off, as San Francisco, they're going to get up to the mid-80s on percentage. We could be very well looking at the final fight.
Yeah, there'll need to be a Bob to stall the point out here, and Valkyrie from Tobi to keep the Dynasty topped up. Can Creative shut down this Transcendence? Choihyobin wants to go for an early Gravitic Flux. This is what happened to him actually on Mecha Base earlier on. This time though, the Shock can't find that early kill on the Sigma, but once more Creative is being hunted by Striker, and the bait is there. Prophet gets the headshot, gets rid of the Tracer, and the Shock are only working with 5 players. That's going to be hard for Moth to resurrect as well. I think they just wait for him to return and... Oh! Prophet! Are you kidding me? 4 kills, 3 headshots, and no San Francisco players to be found.
And he actually ends up taking out Striker earlier on from out of nowhere. Striker is putting so much pressure on Creative. Tobi has to heal him. And that's not the position you want to be in, right? Your Mercy and the Ana, they want to be kind of healing some of these tanks as they push on forward. them trying to just keep each other alive doesn't help the rest of the team. Striker obviously occupying 2 healers in that moment. And Prophet takes him out and then takes out the rest of the team.
Pulse Bomb doesn't connect for Striker. It was definitely wishful thinking to try and catch Prophet there rather than Nimble the Ashes with the coach gun. Prophet is back to business, looking for a pick here. Gesture will body block most of that damage. Makes a better door than a window, that's for sure. And Smurf is taken down by the hack. That's the Sombra at play, Matt.
Is there any hero that Prophet cannot play at the highest level? Like, you don't really kind of consider him like somebody who plays a ton of the long-range hit scan, but I know the way he's played Ash here today, he can definitely hang with the best.
Very unique trait, something that Fletter also shares with him. Something that San Francisco need to make substitutions to even really match. That EMP, though, didn't quite find the mark for Fitz. Still, Prophet is a safe off-angler. Marvel's on the point. Resurrect for Striker here, and it looks like the Shock want to try and double down on this fight, but Prophet chilling on top of the drum. He's safe.
And Ons has not been able to get anything going here on this point. They just denied so many angles, and then also with the Sombra. Now Gesture in the mix on the Wrecking Ball, but so much pressure on him is, like, when I said it was kind of final fight for the Seoul Dynasty, we're approaching that territory here for the Shock.
One more fight is all the Shock have needed, but that one fight win has been eluding them thus far. Last chance saloon for both these teams, and the Dynasty want to keep afloat in this map. Prophet, a long way from Bob here. It's really going to just be the Valkyrie that the Dynasty rely on, and Marvel's hit with the Discord Orb. That's the Valk, but it's not enough to save Marvel. Maybe a res will get him back in the fight. No one's really paying attention to Prophet right now, and he gets rid of Choihyobin. A massive pick, but the Shock have the point, and eventually Prophet will have to step up, stand, and deliver. Choihyobin
working towards this Bob.
Yeah, he's returned. One more hit. Prophet just needs a little bit more damage to get the Bob to stall this out, but Arndt puts him to bed, and Tobi in midair. It's skeet shooting for Arndt. A day at the range, and San Francisco get their 3rd map. That'll bring up match point.
And no, I'm dogging, right? I'm like, oh, you know, they've done a nice job with Hans. Like, they haven't really given him a ton of line of sight. There at the end, when things start to get crazy, you know, they kind of have to push into the lines of sight of Hans. 2 big kills, one on the Prophet, the next on a Tobi as he's flying through the air on the Mercy. And I know behind his Widowmaker there, heroics at the end, they push this to game point.
Matt, that is a Fletter deadlift from Prophet. 19 of Soul's kills, almost in fact. Doesn't quite get there. He had at least half of the Shock's kills all on his own. It still wasn't quite enough there. San Francisco get their nose back out in front, but both teams have a chance to breathe. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, after another break. Our experts are on deck to break the action down.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile.
What's up, everybody? We're coming at you from the spawn room. It's Golden Boy. Time to play Name That Player. We provide fun facts about an Overwatch star. You provide the player. Here are your 3 clues. Has less than an hour of playtime in the OWL. Tied for 4th fewest deaths per 10 minutes of anyone with at least 30 minutes played on Genji this season. Has famous crosshair settings. Magenta 1, 38, 30, 100, 100, 2, 0. The answer coming right up.
Welcome to the game break presented by Pringles, Wavy, Zoe, Costa, and Reinforce at your service. And we got a series on our hands. This is exactly what we wanted the finals to look like. I couldn't be happier even if I tried. So let's go all the way back to map number 3, Hanamura. I dare say all three of us were slightly worried about that map pick. However, it did work out. It was a very strategic move there from the Seoul Dynasty, a risky move, I dare say. However, they did manage. And Costa, you were a little bit disappointed looking at the San Francisco Shock on their kind of lack of adaptation there.
Yeah, it pretty much played out exactly how we expected it. Seoul Dynasty did a phenomenal job of attacking, and on their defense, they played the Farah that I talked about in the last game break. San Francisco Shock eventually overcame it on that first point, which we all expected. The issue became, for me, for this Shock roster, was when they went on to the second point. I think Matt Mr. did a great job of highlighting it in the match, is that they just didn't switch fast enough after the Seoul Dynasty switched back to this sort of double sniper composition, and it showed. They really struggled to get anything done. They didn't really have any chance of looking like they were going to get that second point, and just great strategic play by the Seoul Dynasty. We doubted them. Shock haven't lost it in 18 maps, but they finally break that streak.
Yes, and after that, of course, we went over to Gibraltar, and that's a map that we are a bit wary of when it comes to the Seoul Dynasty as well. They are so very good at that map. San Francisco Shock, they picked it, of course, and came out with a pretty decent defense, I would like to say. Obviously, Seoul Dynasty finished with a bit over a minute. That usually is enough for a team to actually have a pretty good time and to actually beat them. But then the Seoul Dynasty, Profit comes out on the Genji, and that is the game-defining moment in this map. Almost 3 years to the day that Profit brought out the Genji on Gibraltar in Apex Season 4, and now he did it again against the San Francisco Shock and just left a mark with his Dragon Blades. Being boosted by this Mercy, you're able to build up these Dragon Blades a lot faster, and then combining with the Nano Boost as well. That just makes such a big difference, and it's really great if you want to protect the blue box area, which means that Seoul Dynasty has the advantage when it comes to the spacing on point A. Now, Super actually did get a nice hook on the Profit in the last very last play, but that just wasn't enough as Gesture utilized the whole hog to push San Francisco Shock away from the payload.
But you can't help to, but respecting the Seoul Dynasty's ability to adapt, taking those risks, making those plays, breaking the match as we've seen and expected. I absolutely love it. Now, on Busan, on Control, we, of course, did see Smurf coming back in, and looking at the compositions there, specifically at the backline from the San Francisco Shock. Costa, you are quite a fan of how much space Violet and support Violet was given. There we go.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because we always knew this was going to happen. When we go back to Control, San Francisco Shock are going to have that advantage. And I sort of noticed this, and like, here's the EMP. Sorry, actually, I got to stop everything I'm saying. This is an EMP by Fitz at the very end of that round. That was a fat finger. That was a misclick. I am almost certain of it. It's happened to me once. You know, I not really, but you know, it happens to everybody. See, even grand finalists, not just me, it happens to everybody. But back to my original point, I want to say the reason San Francisco Shock are so strong on this Control, they can have arms on that Widow, they can have Striker on that Tracer, but the value they get, I think that we don't really ever talk about, is that enables Moth on that Mercy to pocket Violet a lot more. He gets more space to play aggressive, and it gives inherently everyone else more space as well. That is why they are so strong on these Control maps and why Shock takes it to a 3-2 lead.
Now, the next map coming up for us is going to be Hollywood. Reinforce, what are your thoughts or worries when we're heading over there?
Well, there is actually some worry being warranted here now for the Seoul Dynasty, because last time these two teams faced off in the winner's bracket semifinal, Seoul Dynasty actually were full held on Hollywood, and much of that came down to Violet playing the Zenyatta on point A, San Francisco Shock being able to play very far back on the point. It was very difficult for Gesture and Marvel to walk up onto the point because you have that Discord Orb being utilized and a lot of damage output in general. Some severe adaptations now needs to be made from the Seoul Dynasty, perhaps learning from that match prior in this tournament if you actually want to have a chance to win this grand final.
All right, Costa, very quick thoughts. What do you want to see coming out of either team?
It's going to be really interesting. We have Super coming back into this lineup, which makes me think we're going to be going back to this double sniper as well. So I'm really excited to see if there's going to be minor adaptations or if we're just going to see an all-out brawl and just sort of back and forth like we saw on King's Row.
Prophet
I mean,
Genji?
we do love a good.
Not
we
again.
do
He
love a
can't
good
keep
brawl.
getting away with it. He can't.
But maybe he can. But maybe he can. Wouldn't that be a finals, ladies and gentlemen? Well, the San Francisco Shock are now just one map away from taking it all and becoming your 2020 Overwatch League champions. Can they do it again and become the back-to-back champs? We'll find out in just a bit as we're heading back over to Mr. X and Uber. And a quick reminder to stick around after, because we, of course, are going to break down all the action here on our Watchpoint post-show.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
Welcome back to the Spawn Room. The answer to name that player is Toyou. And excuse me, I gotta write down those settings real fast. All right, so much more to cover the Spawn Room. And of course, the Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals. Don't go anywhere.
Again and again, the Seoul Dynasty have defied expectations and the odds to continue moving forward in this tournament. And now at this point, we're heading into map 6 in our grand finals presented by IBM, Matt. And they're going to have to do it once more on a map that they didn't look so good on against San Francisco earlier on in this grand finals run.
Yeah, so we'll be going to Hollywood for the next map in the set. And you do have Super coming in here for the San Francisco Shock yet again. So a lot of Roadhog play going to be in action for San Francisco. And like you mentioned, they looked really good the other day on Hollywood against the Seoul Dynasty. Can they do it again? I think this is a much different looking Seoul Dynasty, though. They've made the adjustments from the other day coming into this series, it's been very close.
And honestly, this may be a stroke of fortune for San Francisco, who, in general, when it comes to pure escort maps and assault maps, have been pretty poor at them over the course of this tournament. In fact, they haven't won any of them. So a lot of all their wins coming from Control, coming from Hybrid. This is a hybrid map, and this is a must-win for Seoul Dynasty to force a final map presented by IBM and avoid just having it all over here and now. This map,
part of them is final maps Control.
That's right. Yeah, well, exactly right. The tough part for Seoul is that, you know, they had a lot of problems breaking San Francisco's hold on point A, but the treacherous part for attackers on this map is point B. Against Double Sniper on this high ground here in what we've dubbed the Westworld phase of the map, it can be really, really hard to break defensive holds. Seoul Dynasty have given us magic time and time again in this series, Matt, to stay so strong. Let's see if we get it here again. The Pharah from Prophet would be exciting to see once more.
Yes, I fully expect it. I think the Shock expected as well, with Violet on the Batiste already. It's just, can you get value out of this Pharah? He has to play so good on it, like so safe, because you know, you're not just dealing with Ons on the Widow, right? I mean, Striker on Ashe is just as top tier, top caliber. It's so difficult to play the Pharah into 2 hit scans, let alone 1. We'll see if Prophet's able to make it happen. If there's anybody who can make it happen, it is Prophet.
Pause called in the match there by Super. And it seems the San Francisco Shock may have a technical issue or two that they need to iron out, but this is a chance for us to continue to explore this map a little more. The last time, Matt, that San Francisco were actually able to, you know, to play this map against Seoul, it was a freak Widow shot from a grapple hook from Ards that really opened up the fight. But much in the same way as Hanamura was so strong initially for Seoul, that Pharah is really hard to break. Like, if you're a Widowmaker and you're attacking, where do you find that defensive Pharah? How do you prevent them from just dominating you in the choke?
You almost kind of have to do like whether it's a grapple shot over the top, you have to kind of get into the server room area, maybe try and take one of the players out, just playing the cross on the point, or you're relying on your tanks to just be able to push up and get control of high ground. If the Pharah can stay above, hovering above that choke, control that area, it's very difficult for the Widow to hit any types of shots, get any types of line of sight.
We've seen teams so locked into a meta over the course of this tournament. All but the Dynasty. We saw Genji, an incredible pick from Prophet, a mercurial hero at the best of times, but he got everything out of it that the Dynasty needed. And of course, the Pharah, I mean, this is vintage Prophet. We've also seen him play Ashe in this series. We've seen him play Hanzo. I mean, the Trace is there as well. This guy can play everything. I mean, and it's pretty hard to argue that he may be one of the greatest players who's honestly ever touched the game of Overwatch. The Shock, though, they're the one that wants to walk away with a trophy as well, of course, and Arndt will go up for an early grapple, sees nothing. Tobi's down early. That's not what the Dynasty are looking for at all. It's traded out at the very least, and great save by Gesture. Seoul Dynasty able to recover.
And what these Shock try and do is they try and throw the Immortality field to the left and push in behind it. Try and save everybody from a lot of that damage coming down, but Creative hits another big biotic grenade. I don't know if you can live through another fight like that, though. If you lose your Mercy early on, you're gonna be in trouble.
3 minutes and 11, so that cost him about 50 seconds of Shock. And Prophet, there's big stuff he's positioning now. Super gets hit with an accretion. Striker somehow coach gunning himself upwards to try to find the 180. It's Gesture that's gone down, though. Super's been effective at shutting the enemy Roadhog down, but he was clinging onto life himself. But with Creative gone, man, how did the Dynasty fight back here?
They've done the hard part. They get through the choke. It's going to be almost impossible for the Dynasty to fight back as Marvel uses the Gravitic Flux. He will get taken out, and that's a few more players here left alive as Tobi will get hooked in by Super. But if you're, like I mentioned, if you're not able to hold that choke with the Pharah, you're not going to get a win with it. San Francisco, they push right in. They're able to get control of the choke. They push the Pharah out. They're able to get the payload.
And what do you make of this? Prophet hasn't switched off the Pharah yet.
I feel like you're going to have to. I mean, especially this part of the map. You know, there's not really like a huge choke that you can hold down. Yep, he'll go over to the Hanzo. So the Hanzo to control that high ground.
And this part of the map seems so hard to break for attackers here. Marvel goes low, but is able to save himself with the kinetic grasp. And like, how do you get the Dynasty off the high ground if you're San Francisco? Like, maybe a lucky hook, maybe you force them down, but Fitz finds a pick on Striker. There's just no shielding for San Francisco.
You know, me and Josh and Bren were watching the game the other day, and I feel like this is one of the hardest positions to get past, is when this team can control that high ground. You almost have to have somebody almost like the Shock are doing right now, move the cart. Self-destruct from Choi over the top, maybe just trying to buy some space. He connects to Tobi.
That is magnificent. Really, just to try and open up some space. He gets the enemy Mercy, but it's Jester and Prophet, the dynamic duo, stepping up. No way. Prophet finds Striker there in the backside, and now Super is a little tentative about whether he wants to come forward. Prophet still rules the skies.
He's going to be able to. Is a beautiful hook there from Super. And all he needs to do is just get this cart around the corner, right? Deny some of that high ground up by the bridge. Excellent from San Francisco, able to break it. They have to use just about everything to be able to do it, though.
We saw the Dynasty, though. This part of the map towards the end, they really showed up and slowed the Shock down once more. Gesture's going to hold the corner here, and you can see the shield delivered. Choihyobin stunned up there. A Striker playing from the high ground, but sees nothing, and that's a crucial kill. When it counts, Gesture finds it. Marvel will follow up here with the Gravitic Flux, and this should just drag out the fight nicely for the Dynasty. Give themselves plenty of time to work with, ideally.
You're okay with this if you're the Shock. You know, you have a decent amount of time, and look at this, they're just throwing in ults. You do Gravitic Flux, Dragon, you're okay with that. I mean, you came in with relatively nothing for San Francisco. You know, you get in, you do a little bit of damage, you get them to expel some ults. Now you come back to fight again. The bad part is, we'll see what Seoul Dynasty decides to do. Yeah, no, this will be the bad part. As they want to take this high ground yet again. They know how strong this roof is.
This is huge for the Dynasty. Fantastic presence of mind to know that this is where they need to be. On top of the saloon, they reclaim this hard-fought territory, and the Shock had to go and do it again. Incredible Widow play from both sides. Violet and Prophet both fall, but it's definitely the Dynasty who get the better end of that trade. Let's see what the reses look like. Super somehow able to find a hook on Tobi. Gesture's mad. Big Brother comes to the rescue.
Yeah, as what the Shock decide to do is, instead of trying to fight that high ground, just get up towards it. Ooh, Fitz with another headshot. They try and send players down towards the point that just put pressure on the cart and draw them back. It's not good enough, though. Fitz, 2 headshots back-to-back, knows exactly where Violet's playing from. So that would be bad for the Shock. I mean, remember when the Seoul Dynasty are making their comeback in their earlier series in the tournament? It was really when Ons went a little bit quiet, a little bit cold, and Fitz was able to really heat up. A bad sign for the San Francisco Shock if we start seeing that again.
Yep, this is not nearly as smooth as it was earlier for San Francisco. Every time they find a kill, Gesture is there to respond. Whole Hog, he couldn't get away from it, but Fitz is able to get rid of Moth, and that Gravitic Flux, despite not connecting on anyone, still a good position for Seoul to be until Super strikes once more. That's a big hook onto Marvel, and that'll buy the Shock a little bit more space, but it won't guarantee a capture. Violet is cracked. He's out of his mind. He finds Fitz. Maybe some more pressure towards Tobi here. He's got the blaster around at 1 HP. Violet, the Daredevil, the evil Knievel of Overwatch, gets away with such audacity. Should not be allowed.
How many Zens do you see go up to that position?
None, because none of them
relatively alone.
None of them are remotely as psycho as Violet is.
No Sigma or any type of protection up there. Takes out the Widow, who's got a Mercy pocket, and then takes out the Mercy as well. Just a wild play from Violet.
But look, talking to our resident Widow expert, the Brito Maker, rest in peace, he mentioned that it is hard to hit the Zen with that sort of left-right strafe move. Even when you're boosted by a Mercy, it doesn't mean the shots are easy to hit. I mean, that's incredible. Presence of mind, but what a sleep. Striker, though, will be sat on. That's not going to be enough. Troy tried to protect him, but the Dragon Strike will chomp him up.
Overall, though, this is a pretty good defense for the Seoul Dynasty. You can get a hold here. You have Infrasight, you have Whole Hog, and the Nano Boost. You get a hold here. All you have to do for Seoul is just do not let them finish the map. Gives yourself a really good shot here going into their offense.
That's all it took on Hanamura, and they really followed up after that. To finish Gibraltar, didn't have to play the rest of the map. Seoul looked so good there. And they've got everything they need right now. It's up to San Francisco. The onus is on them to challenge and answer. I mean, a ridiculous headshot on Fitz. I don't even know how he finds those. A Resurrect might be required. It's going to be a Gravitic Flux, but Super can't be protected because he's hit with another Biotic Grenade from Creative, causing so many problems for the backline of the Shock. Is this Ana? And now the Shock will be chased on out. 1 minute and 7 remains.
Yeah, when you kind of look across what San Francisco has, they end up using their Transcendence there. Gravitic Flux and Whole Hog. They felt like that was their chance to get it over the line. Violet will now go over to Ana, I believe, for the first time in the series. see his use of the biotic grenades. Fitz hold on to the Infrasight. So you'll have Infrasight here. Big advantage with the Gravitic Flux. Possibly a Dragon to combo with it. Seoul Dynasty in a perfect position to get a defensive hold before that third point.
Infrasight will be big for Fitz. Not required now as the Sonic Arrow does all that work on a shorter cooldown. Gravitic Flux for Super. He is in trouble. He's yoinked out of it as Marvel will not be denied. It's going to be the Valkyrie from Moth here.
He thought about it. Risky though.
Not going to happen. No resurrect opportunity there. Super will have to walk back the old-fashioned way. Still 13 seconds remain and a chance for the Shock to move. They just stay cagey around the car right now and try not to give over any more casualties. But this is where the fight really begins. That's a sleep down on Gesture. Is there capitalization? No, not possible. Gesture's going to pick himself back up and Violet gets caught by the Dragon Strike. Prophet comes up with the goods. Violet has to be resurrected here. Tobi was boosting Prophet, but now he'll be looking for a flank kill on this Hanzo from the high ground. The Shock have to go. They have to keep on the cart now. Super dodges the accretion. One comes out and Striker with two. They find Tobi and Prophet on the high ground and now he gets to flank. Gesture with a whole hold keeps most of the Shock off the cart, but now they return. It's all orange all the time on the cart. Marvel has to step forward. Another incredible biotic grenade from Creative, but it may not be enough. Nano boost Fitz. If the shoe fits, he'll wear it, and apparently the Shock made great moccasins right now. Marvel hangs on to the cart. It's just Super. Can he keep it alive? Striker comes up to join him, but Fitz has the off angle. Let it take a breather. It's not enough. Fitz, you absolute monster. The Dynasty hold on, and they deny the Shock the map completion.
Oh my. That is a huge fight in just terms of overall momentum. The Shock, they think they have it. They think they have the map complete. Fitz with two headshots back to back. Marvel on the point, Mitch. You know, he gets hit with the nano boost. He builds up a Gravitic Flux. So careful. He has to kind of like tread the middle ground between raising up with the Gravitic Flux, but also contesting the point. And the remainder of Seoul Dynasty floods out of the spawn. Because right now, if you're Seoul Dynasty, you look at this, hey, if we complete the map, if we finish Hollywood, we get a final game.
Look at this from Fitz. Absolutely absurd. And he's styled on Arns this entire map. Look how low he is. He's still looking for the flank. No concern for his own safety.
Oh, these shots are just so crisp.
Well, he's just killed two of the hardest heroes to hit in this game. Like, those hitboxes are impossible to hit. I mean, Fitz has 11 kills, 4 deaths. Arns is 4 and 3. That is the Widow difference you're witnessing right now. And that's what kept Seoul alive. Incredible stuff, and now they know what they got to do, Matt. You said it. Finish the map, force map 7.
And I think the two bigger differences, I think, or biggest differences, I think you would say early on in the series was Ans's ability to win the Widowmaker battle, and then also Super on the Roadhog was just dominant against Gesture early on in the series. Both of those things have come back to about an even game. Gesture has started to play much better as the series has gone on. Same with Fitz.
Again, it's Creative. He's the player I'm looking at. These biotic grenades are disrupting the Shock so much. Just when they think they're safe, just when they think they can heal up, that's when they're wrong. And actually, the Shock give up so much of this choke here, though, so they allow the Dynasty to take the high ground. And like on the face of it, it looks like the Shock just put themselves in a weaker position here.
They were trying to potentially play a little bit closer, maybe challenge that high ground. But Violet got hit with a shot, and they needed to kind of back up, make sure he was okay before kind of coming back out.
Striker playing cagey. They get Gesture early. May still be a resurrect there. And Striker goes down, so it's a trade. Now, you see Super push up here, try and take space and make that resurrect possible. San Francisco get to take a breather here now as the Dynasty are a little deep. May get staggered if they're spotted here. Creative is deep in enemy territory.
But they're not being aggressive, the San Francisco Shock. They almost want the Seoul Dynasty to kind of push on in and separate. They feel like they have a better opportunity to just kind of pick players off one by one, especially playing the Zen. Now you'll see Seoul Dynasty as an entire team wrap around this left-hand side. They know this is where Violet plays.
This is a level of cautiousness from the Shock that we just don't see very often. It's respect for the Dynasty.
No res.
I mean, respect's not going to save you from an arrow trained at your head like that. Transcendence from Violet. He doesn't want to deal with those arrows coming at him, and Prophet now goes on the hunt. Gesture goes down. Tobi can't resurrect right now. That hurts the Dynasty in a big way, but still, Fitz is able to find a big pick on Violet now. Choihyobin has no idea where to be looking. Super gets rid of Creative though, and in a long fight, the Dynasty might struggle. Prophet has to go for a hero play. Can't find the shot.
Hey, and you have a Gravitic Flux here coming in from Marvel on the other side. Valkyrie pumped here from Tobi. So the Gravitic Flux doesn't result in anything, and then you have Prophet dying on the backside. Gesture with a change over to Wrecking Ball. Seoul Dynasty, this has been really odd offense so far. I think it's almost because the Shock are playing so passive as well. As Seoul's just trying to find an opening, they haven't been able to do so at all.
90 seconds left in the round. That's all that stands between Seoul and a loss in this series. And a championship rendered over to the Shock. They've got to find something special now. Creative is getting close to a nano boost. There is a Dragon Strike afoot.
Insight here for the Shock, though. You're not going to push into this if you're Seoul Dynasty. You have to wait this out. This will allow the Dragon Strike to get built up. Striker has a really good idea, obviously, after the walls and with the Sonic Arrow, where they're playing from.
60 seconds left.
And they've gotten really, what, 2 fights at that?
Gesture though, look at him. He wants it so bad. Nano boost, he ignores the Dragon Strike, walks on around it. He's coming for the crown. Zap back on the point. Moth goes for a Valkyrie here. And Marvel's forced to turn his back on something. Arts is flanking around on the Widowmaker. This is a big risk. Will it pay off? Looks like the Gravitic Flux didn't find anything in the flank from Arts. It gets a kill. Let's trade it out though. Super's put to sleep on the point now, and it has to be a Transcendence from Violet. Choihyobin steps up. 30 seconds left in the round, but Fitz finds Striker crucially, and now he's the one flanking. Gesture falls to the whole hog, and Moth is lucky to get away with his life there. Gravitic Flux makes the shots easy for Fitz, but he's only got 20 health left. Tobi's down. Violet, what a huge shot across the map, but Creative chimes back in, and the Dynasty can move to the point. This is where they bring it back. They're creasing on towards Super. The Shock had to step away. The Dynasty, they keep it alive. They stay in the series.
The Shock are what? A kill away pretty much in that fight from winning the Overwatch League, and Seoul Dynasty battles back when it matters the most. This is going to be the hardest part of the game right here. If they can break this top setup straight away, Seoul Dynasty has a chance. 2 fights go the Shock's way up here. They're going to be way down in terms of the clock.
One foul step from the Shock though, and the Dynasty will be over them like moss on a rock, and they will be pushing that payload. They'll be taking the high ground. Still a minute and 56 left. The Dynasty have time to work with, and there it is. That's the pick on Striker. Resurrect Gesture's looking for the Mercy, but he can't get to Moth in time. That hook doesn't connect. Fitz looking for an insane peek. Choihyobin catches him with a Hyperspheres on his way down for the grapple.
Yeah, and they're going to use the Nano Boost here onto Gesture. They know they need to open this up. That'll be a hook and a kill on a Choi. Can he get another one though? Striker with one, Ons with another.
Unbelievable.
It's not looking good for Seoul. The snipers of San Francisco coming alive.
The composure from Striker to face down and nano boosted Roadhog with full health and just take a couple shots, headshots of course, and take him down. At any point there could have been a hook that claimed his life. That is stone cold.
And this is hard to break, Mitch, when you're playing like even the Onacomp. It's almost harder now when they have the Zen up top. Because you're dealing with both of the snipers just kind of in odd positions, odd angles to the side. You can't completely ignore them. But then Violet's just raining down the discords and the damage from up above with Sigma.
Striker, this is risky. Super unintentionally stalling the car with his immense bulk. The Dynasty need to find something, but they're low on health. Marvel and Gesture. Yes, Tobi has to pop the Valkyrie. Fitz goes down, but it may be a safe resurrect. Not with the Dragon Strike coming through. And now the Shock are trying to wrap around the backside. Violet's there, charges up the odds, and Creative's head goes rolling. Transcendence is on the table for Violet. Choihyobin has been removed, but still plenty to work with for the Shock. Super chases Gesture down, and 24 seconds remain. The Seoul Dynasty are on their last legs.
And the Shock have Infrasight here. They'll know exactly where they're coming from. They're not going to be able to push into it with ease. Whole hog to knock them back. Transcendence as well. Everything aligning for the Shock. Seoul Dynasty needs some magic here.
Fitz. Magic in those hands, you better believe it. Prophet also has a Dragon Strike. It's all on the table now, and it's all for the taking. Prophet ascends to the high ground. Cart is on the move. Gesture, though, hit with a Discord Orbit, needs to be careful now, and that's a Gravitic Flux from Marvel. Doesn't find much here and has to be a kinetic grasp on the way back down. Gesture falls, Tobi follows. Choihyobin gonna chase in after Marvel, and the whole hog, a victory dance for Super, oinking his way to victory. Whoever said lightning doesn't strike twice has never met the San Francisco Shock, your 2020 Overwatch League champions.
Unbelievable finish. At every moment in this series where there was like a need to respond, you know, a big play, the San Francisco Shock always came up clutch. And Seoul Dynasty pushed them to the brink in this match. Like no other team we've seen them push to San Francisco before. Very valiant effort from Seoul, but not enough to deny San Francisco their back-to-back champions.
The relief on this team's faces, you can see from the facility cams. These guys, they battled it out over a long season along the rest of the Overwatch League, right? Started with homestands and then it was playing online. They get on a plane, they get to Korea, they quarantine for an extended period of time. We saw what their life was like there. It wasn't easy. I mean, they did it all with that hunger, that belief that they would be the ones at the end of the day to hold the trophy aloft. And the fans joined with them from coast to coast across the world, in fact. San Francisco has cemented themselves as the greatest team in Overwatch. Back-to-back champions.
And just the fashion they did it in, right? So much up against them this season. You know, traveling, then going back home, the change to online, like so many different factors that go into it. And it doesn't matter. San Francisco just battles throughout all of it. To win a back-to-back, a second championship for the San Francisco Shock. This is a team, a lot of people early on in the season were like, hey, you know, they don't look the same. Maybe they're not as good. It did not faze these players at all. They knew how good this team was. They believed in the coaching that they have. Everybody on the roster, top to bottom, made an impact throughout the entire season. A huge, just organizational victory here for the Shock.
And to so many fans around the world, it was a polarizing sense of bravado with which the Shock went about their business, right? You either loved them or you hated them. You appreciated the sort of brash behavior of people like Super on the stream or the rest of the Shock saying that they had it, or you sort of felt alienated by it and you thought, maybe this is a bit cocky, but ultimately it was a Shock that in the face of unprecedented conditions around the globe, put the brave face on, stepped up and did it with a smile. And now to see them take things out here at the end of the Overwatch League is incredible to see.
Yeah, and you just look at this roster and how they've used it throughout the year. Everybody has made impact at times, right? You know, you've seen Twilight come in when they run the double flex support stuff for Moth. We've seen Super, you know, Reinhardt early, Genji in the middle, comes in, you know, doesn't really play much during the playoffs to get here, but in the grand finals presented by IBM, plays a huge role playing the Roadhog. You know, just incredible job by Krusty, the rest of the coaching staff, to put all these players in positions to succeed, and also just a tremendous roster, top to bottom, everybody top tier at their position.
It really speaks volumes. You know, it's the kind of thing that you see on a motivational posters or a motivational speakers, like getting the most out of people, right? Understanding how to utilize people's strengths in the greatest way possible. But you have a deep roster here on San Francisco. Every bit of it gets utilized. Super gets sidelined by the looks of things for quite some time, and so the memes, the jokes start to pop up about, you know, him sort of, you know, stepping aside and, you know, maybe being a caster. But, I mean, when you see the guy hit the game like this in those final moments, I mean, the Shock had a lot to work with there. Still, Creative punishes them with a biotic grenade. Super just says, nope, this is it. This is our moment. He reaches for the cup once more. And as with a whole hog celebration, the San Francisco come out victorious. Incredible scenes. And finally, Matt, a little bit selfishly, it's incredible to see such a close final. The Seoul Dynasty, the way that they developed over this season, you know, finally truly offering the fans what they were promised so early on, was the team a powerhouse, a juggernaut, and they have absolutely become that.
Yeah, Seoul has a lot to be proud of with how they played this season, how they, you know, they've kind of gone up and down throughout the season, but how they kind of came together around playoff time, really kind of hit their stride. You have a lot of nice players, and this is a team that's going to contend for the future. But today is the Shock's day yet again. This one's got to feel just as special, if not more special, than the first one last year. Right, different environment. I know, obviously, not in the arena with the fans, the confetti kind of coming down from there, but just the amount of camaraderie they had to kind of build throughout the year, right? teams traveling, teams kind of living together through all of this. They had to have become much closer as a team than they've ever been in the past. I bet you this one means just as much, if not more to them.
I mean, 5 championships now under their belt if you include the Countdown Cup, May Melee, and Stage 2 finals. And that is an impressive rap sheet from a team that was sort of developed, with the long term in mind, right? In the Season 1 of the Overwatch League, we often mention this part of the Shock's history. They were not compelling until towards the end of the season. But they've done such a job of cultivating this culture amongst the team of excellence in hunting that, and it's created this kind of roster that, it's a legacy that may never be broken in the history of the Overwatch League. Winning 2 championships in a row, especially in the short history of the Overwatch League that we have now, it's an incredible feat. Well,
I mean, you just hear kind of even just like in traditional sports, right? Just how difficult it is to win 1 championship. Same in esports, to win 2 back-to-back. It is very difficult. I mean, you don't know how, like you mentioned, when you would see this again. There's so many factors, especially in a game like Overwatch, right? The meta has to shake out your favor. You have to have a good seed in the regular season through all of the games, right? You have to kind of play well in terms of the cups that we have. To kind of put that together over the period of time that they've done already, you don't know when this is going to be seen again. You also don't know when this is going to be defeated. This looks like a team that is not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, and what's incredible is that obviously there were unprecedented conditions that teams faced with how hero pools operated, right? It required a vastly deeper involvement by coaching staff in terms of developing these compositions. Every team had to crack the code of a meta essentially in advance, or they'd risk losing so many of these matches. There were many teams that did it, but nobody did it quite like the San Francisco Shock, and it's my pleasure now to head down to the floor, as we'll call her. Danny Lim has some words from the victors.
Mitch and Matt, thank you very much. What is up, everybody? Danny Lim here, joined by Super from San Francisco Shock, and we do have a special guest. We have John Spector, our Vice President of Overwatch Esports, who is going to have a few words for our winning champions. John, go ahead.
Awesome. That was a truly incredible match. Congratulations, Super, the entire San Francisco Shock team and organization. 2020 threw countless obstacles at you guys, and every single time you climbed back on top. Winning back-to-back championships is an incredible feat. You guys should be so proud, and congratulations again. Danny, back to you.
Thank you, John. All right, John, thank you so much. Can we all get a virtual round of applause? John, can we do a little clap, everybody, for the San Francisco Shock 2020 Overwatch League champions, baby. Yeah, Super. All right, let's get on with the interviews. I do have to ask you about the last part, bro. Like, that whole hog. How'd it feel? Like, that winning moment, you guys won with that whole hog. Like, you won it. I mean, you and the team won it, but, like, how'd it feel?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because we had a very similar situation like that before. And I remember Krusty got mad at me because I didn't, like, push the advantage enough. But this time, I was like, I heard that the hog uses heal, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going. And then I just whole hogged in, I went in. And, you know, I think I got like 4 people, but, you know, I had to like run out of here because I was like alone in this room. I had to zoom out to the other room to be with my teammates, but feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, man, I bet it does. I mean, dude, it was a clutch thing. Congratulations again. And also, my second question for you is, you know, you guys won the 2019 Grand Finals, and with this, you guys are back-to-back champions. This is the first time in Overwatch League history. What is this whole winning the Grand Finals twice in a row? Like, what does that mean to you?
You know, I thought about this a little bit before, and I knew this would make us the best Overwatch team of all time. Overwatch League, pre-Overwatch, no matter what you say. I think you would have to put us in that discussion no matter what. But I also think that it goes beyond Overwatch, and it's like you can talk about us with like the best esports teams of all time, not just Overwatch, but if you branch across every, you know, esport that's ever existed, I feel like you can put us in that conversation with those teams who are dominant and have been a dynasty, and they've built a dynasty in the past.
That is absolutely correct. Everyone, you heard it from Super right now. Super, thank you so much. Hey, this is a special post-match interview, so Super, can you pass on that mic to Ons, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Super. All right, Overwatch League fans, we have Ans. An 선수 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Now, I do want to sort of ask you. I think we saw you, cry a little, a tear. You're shedding a tear of excitement of winning the grand finals. How are you feeling right now? 아까 보니까 조금 살짝 눈물을 흘리신 걸 봤는데 지금 일단 소감 한 말씀 듣고 싶어요. 어떠신가요?
일단 이게 옛날부터 이제 제가 인정을 많이 못 받았었는데 이제 지금이서야 인정할 수 있고 좋은 선수라는 걸 증명한 것 같고요. 이제 어머니 아버지가 자랑스럽게 여길 수 있는 아들로 이제 생각돼서 정말 기쁜 것 같아요.
Alright, I think ever since long time ago, ever since I started playing Overwatch, there were a lot of people who were doubting me, and I think through this moment, by winning the grand finals with San Francisco Shock, I think I sort of proved to all those doubters that, I deserve to be here, and I sort of proved that, I don't have to be doubted as a pro gamer, and especially I do want to, I think my parents, my mom and my dad will be super proud of this moment and of me right now. I cannot agree. That is so true. I feel like everyone in the Overwatch League and every one of San Francisco Shock fans will be proud of you. So good job, Ans. I have one more question. For you, this Overwatch League, this was your first year in Overwatch League, and this was your first grand finals, and also in your first year you've achieved so much by winning this grand finals. Did you ever think that you would get this far in your first season of Overwatch League? 자, 이제 두 번째 질문으로는 이제 안 선수는 어떻게 보면은 이번 년이 오버워치 리그 처음이고 또 그랜드 파이널도 처음인데다가 그런데 또 너무나도 잘 하셔서 이렇게 우승까지 하시게 되셨는데 처음부터 리그를 들어오면서 어떻게 이렇게 잘 풀릴 거라고 좀 예상을 하셨나요?
솔직히 말해서 이제 한국 부트캠 이제 한국에 그랜드 파이널을 하게 데려왔을 때는 그때는 되게 몸 상태가 좋았어서 당연히 우승할 거라고 생각을 했었는데 이제 연습실과 이제 팀원들과 같이 생활하면서 제가 몸 상태가 좀 많이 안 좋아졌어요. 그것 때문에 이제 우승을 나 때문에 못할 수도 있겠다라고 생각했는데 이제 팀원들이 잘 버텨준 덕분에 우승할 수 있었던 것 같아요.
Right, so after we moved to Korea for the grand finals, right at that time frame, I really was in a good condition. My health was really good, so I felt really good, and I really felt like we could win the grand finals. But after a little time passed, I wasn't feeling too well, so I started having doubts of myself. But we won at the end, and I think it was because of my teammates sort of helping me out throughout the matches, and that is how we won. And Ans, one more thing, I just want to, just ask you, like, if you have anything you want to say, just say it to the camera. 마지막으로는 질문이 아닙니다, 안 선수. 오늘 너무나도 잘하셨기 때문에 카메라 보고 뭐 하시고 싶은 말씀 있으면 다 하세요.
제가 많이 인정받지 못했던 선수였는데 딱 이 한마디만 하고 싶어요. This year, 2020, I'm the best player in the world DPS player.
All right, thank you so much. What An said before his statement was that what he sort of wanted to talk to all the people that had doubted him or people who didn't believe that he was a good player. So An's statement were for those people. Ans, thank you so much. Now, can you pass on the mic to head coach Krusty, please? 크러스티 코치님한테 넘겨주세요. 감사합니다. Thank you, Ans. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the man who made the team, the mastermind of San Francisco Shock, Coach Krusty. 코치 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
How are you feeling right now? 지금 어떠세요 지금 기분? 심정 어떠세요?
아직도 약간 실감이 나지 않습니다. 이게 우승을 한 건지 정말 이번 연도가 엄청 저에게 힘든 한 해였는데 다시 한번 이 우승컵을 지켜냈다는 거에 큰 의의가 있는 것 같아요. 지금 너무 행복합니다.
All right, so you know, I still can't believe it. You know, it definitely the whole season, this Overwatch League 2020 season was definitely not easy. But the fact that you know, we were able to defend our championship and you know, win it again this year was a huge thing, and I am super happy about that right now. Now, Coach Krusty, you know, of course, you sort of briefly mentioned this right now, but you know, because you had to defend the championship, I'm sure there were, you know, you guys felt a little bit of pressure. And I know there were a lot of eyes on the San Francisco Shock. What was your team's mentality coming into this match against Seoul Dynasty? 일단 방금 감독님께서 말씀을 해주셨지만은 어떻게 보면은 이제 작년 우승자로서 좀 어떻게 보면은 이번 경기를 들으면서 살짝 긴장감이나 좀 이렇게 부담감이 있었을 것 같아요. 뭐 그런 게 있으셨는지 또 아니면은 이번 경기 마지막 결승전을 들어오면서 좀 어떤 생각으로 경기에 임하고 또 팀원 또 이제 선수들에게 또 어떤 말씀을 해주셨는지 궁금합니다.
일단은 이번 2020년도가 유난히 이제 힘들었습니다. 이제 코로나로 인해서도 그렇고, 그리고 저희는 이제 한번 우승을 해본 팀이다 보니까 이제 선수들도 이제 약간 동기부여가 될 것들도 상당히 이제 결여가 되었었는데요. 이번 연도 저희가 정말 선수들이 다 같이 힘을 합쳐서 이 우승컵을 지키기 위해서 이렇게 힘든 한 해였는데 너네가 집에 그냥 아무것도 없이 돌아가면은 너무 후회되지 않겠느냐. 이번 연도 다시 한번 이 우승컵을 지켜내자. 진짜 이 하나로 저희 팀들이 전부 다 버티고 여기까지 올 수 있게 되었던 것 같습니다.
Alright, so definitely again, 2020 season was pretty difficult because of the COVID-19 situation and everything. You know, because we also won last year. While I was talking to our team and to our players, you know, I sort of told them that, you know, if we don't win and if we don't defend this the championship, you know, I feel like we're all gonna regret it. So I sort of told them, and we all as a team had that mentality of we have to defend this as a team and to win it again. So that's how we did. That's how I did it. Okay, Coach Krusty, thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you want to say? 마지막으로 뭐 하시고 싶은 말씀 있으십니까?
Hey guys, are you shocked?
Alright, Coach Krusty, thank you so much. 시간 주셔서 너무 감사드립니다.
감사합니다.
Alright, everybody. So that is it for the post-match interview, but now it's time that we've all been waiting for. It's time to reveal the T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP. Are you guys ready? Here we go. The Grand Finals MVP goes to Striker from San Francisco Shock. Striker, you are the T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP. Congratulations. Alright, so before we talk to Striker, John, everybody please welcome back John Spector. He is going to congratulate Striker. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Danny. Congratulations, Striker. Your performance on Tracer the entire Grand Finals was legendary and incredible. Popped off at all the other heroes you touched. The Hanzo play to close it out was incredible too. You deserve this. The team put on an incredible performance, but you really stood at the top with play the entire time. So congratulations on becoming the T-Mobile MVP and enjoy the extra $100,000 as well. Danny, back to you.
All right, John, thank you so much. Okay, Striker, again, big congratulations on winning the T-Mobile MVP. What does winning this T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP mean to you? 자, 일단 쉽게 첫 번째 질문을 할게요. 스트라이커 선수, 일단 너무나도 축하드리고 당연히 우승도 축하드리고 또 이제 팀오브 MVP로 뽑히신 것도 너무나도 축하드립니다. 이번 상을 이렇게 받은 거에 대한 좀 이렇게 의미가 있다면 좀 어떤 특별한 의미가 있을까요? 스트라이커 선수에게.
일단은 제가 이제 프로 하면서 이런 이제 그랜드 파이널에서 MVP를 받았다는 게 엄청 뜻깊은 것 같고요. 그리고 이제 저는 약간 저보다는 그래도 안스나 바이올렛, 뭐 슈퍼, 뭐 모스 이렇게 그래도 이제 다른 선수들이 MVP 받을 줄 알았는데 제가 MVP 받아서 너무 좋긴 하네요.
You know, the fact that, you know, getting this T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP in the Grand Finals, you know, definitely does have a lot of special meaning for me. And to be really honest, I thought players like Ons, Violet, Super, or, you know, even any other teammates that played with me on stage, I feel like they would have gotten, I thought they were going to get it, but the fact that I was chosen, I was the one that received MVP, I am super grateful and very, very thankful. And also, Striker, John sort of mentioned this, the winning prize is 100K. How are you gonna spend all this money? 이번 이제 이 MVP로 선정이 되면서 이제 요게 운이 좀 들어오시게 되는데, 네. 이 뭐지? 100K면은 10만 불인가요? 네, 그죠. 10만 불을 받으시게 될 텐데 이 돈을 어떻게 쓰실 생각이신가요?
일단은 아직 계획해둔 건 없는데 아마 이제 저희 아빠한테 사드릴 것 같아요. 네.
Okay, so as of right now, you know, I don't have anything in plan, but I think after, like, when the money comes in, I think I'm gonna buy my dad a car. Okay. Are you gonna get him a nice car? 좀 좋은 차 사드릴 생각이신가요?
네, 아마 그럴 것 같아요.
Yes, of course. I think I'm gonna get him a nice car. Okay. Let's ask one last question, Striker. You know, San Francisco Shock won 2019, and 2020. Do you think San Francisco Shock could win three times in a row for 2021? 2019년, 2020년 두 번이나 벌써 샌프란시스코 쇼크가 우승을 했는데 어떻게 스트라이커 선수가 보시기에는 2021년도에도 가능할 것 같나요?
네, 일단 저희가 이제 저희 선수들과 이제 코치, 스태프 사람들이 이제 똑같은 목표를 가지고 있고 노력을 이제 언제나 열심히 한다면은 가능할 것 같아요.
Alright, so definitely I think, you know, all our players, if all of our players, all of our coaching staff and everyone who's in the Shock, we sort of have that goal in mind every time we practice. And if we just, you know, have that focus and have that mentality and also just work hard towards that goal, I believe that is definitely possible. Let's add in one more question, Striker. You are the T-Mobile MVP for 2020 season. Striker, are you the best Overwatch League player? 스트라이커 선수, 이번 MVP 스트라이커 선수십니다. 스트라이커 답을 듣고 싶어요, 제가. 스트라이커 선수가 이번 오버워치 리그에서 최고의 선수가 맞습니까?
저 일단은 트레이서는 제가 베스트가 맞는 것 같고요. 그리고 이제 나머지 딜러들은 그래도 탑급인 것 같아요. 탑급이나? 일단 이번 플레이오프에서는 그래도 잘해가지고 네, 그래도 탑급이지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 네.
No, I want your, you know, strong answer. 이렇게 좀 이렇게 얼버 부리지 말고 확실하게 얘기해 주세요. 맞습니까, 아닙니까?
맞습니다. 제가 베스트 플레이인 것 같아요.
Alrighty, he did say that he is the best player, but before that, he was sort of on the fence. He said he is definitely the best tracer, and all the other DPS he was on the fence about, but he did say he was sort of up there with all the other best players. But for sure, he is the best player for tracer. But again, he said it as a bold statement. He is the best Overwatch League player by winning the T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP. Striker, thank you so much. 너무도 감사드리고요. We'll see you next year. 이제 내년에 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 너무도 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다.
Alrighty, everyone, that is it for me today. My name was Danny Lim, and now it's time to go back to our wonderful and sexy casters, Mitch and Matt. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Danny, and fantastic to hear from a few of the players there on the Shock, and especially from Striker, T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP, Matt, and a well-deserved award at that.
Yes, Striker had a tremendous series, start to finish. You know, the Tracer at the beginning, Hanzo in between. some Ash play in the mix. A few players, I think, from the Shock you could have given it to, but I think Striker definitely stood out above them all.
Yeah, stepped up in a way that maybe we weren't expecting, even though we still expect greatness from this San Francisco team. That is the incredible part. Ladies and gentlemen, the sun is rising here in Southern California, and so it sets on a magnificent 2020 Overwatch League season. I know it's been a crazy year, a weird one for many people, and maybe a lot of you at home are feeling isolated and a long way away from other people, but sometimes, times like this, I feel like we as a community and as Overwatch League fans have never been closer. We're united in our shared circumstances right now in the world. We're united in, from what I've seen, our desire to change the world, and I think we're united in the love of the game. And so thank you very much for joining us so far this season. This is goodbye, but just for now. Let's make sure you look after each other, listen to each other. We'll see you soon, and we're going to head now over towards our Watchpoint Pro Show to break down an incredible capstone to the 2020 season. Thank you, and we'll see you later.